Good afternoon. Opening today's meeting of the Santa Rosa City School Board, Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. At this time, I will take public comment on closed session agenda items. Speakers will have 2 minutes each. The items on the closed session agenda are as follows. B1, Public Employee Performance Evaluation. B2, Conference with Labor Negotiator. B3, Conference with Legal Counsel, Anticipated Litigation. B4, Student Expulsions. I have no blue cards for public comment, but we will ask if there are any members in person in the chambers who would like to give public comment on closed session items.
I don't believe we have any persons in the chamber to give public comment.
Thank you. At this time, we will recess to closed session. Good evening. Thank you all for attending today's meeting of the Santa Rosa City School Board, opening this meeting Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. We will start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and remain standing through our land acknowledgement. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And leading us today in our land acknowledgement is Elizabeth Billy, Madonna Feather Cruz, and Donna Fernandez.
Donna Fernandez Ilambak. I'm Donna Fernandez. I'm Elam Pomo. I'm currently a teacher at Pioneer High. So thank you for inviting us to do the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the schools within Santa Rosa City School District and the Board of Education meeting are taking place through the unceded territory of California, home to nearly 200 tribal nations. As we begin this meeting, we acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of the southern Pomo, Coast Miwok, and Wapo tribes. A land acknowledgement is a critical step towards working with Native communities to secure meaningful partnerships and inclusion in the stewardship and protection of their cultural resources and homelands. Let's take a moment to honor these ancestral grounds that we are collectively gathered upon and support the resilience and strength that all Indigenous people have shown worldwide. Thank you for this time to recognize the original inhabitants through this land acknowledgement, and moreover, show appreciation to the current Native American students and staff within our school district.
Oh. Thank you, Elizabeth, Madonna, and Donna. Thank you. And please be seated. And Sherry. Thank you, Sherry. Okay, this brings us to item C3 on our agenda this evening, report of actions taken in closed session. We have nothing to report this evening. Item C4, items considered in closed session for action in open session. We are seeking a motion on student expulsion case number 2023-2401.
Move to accept the recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. That was moved by Vice President Medina and seconded by Director Flores. Roll call vote, please.
Director Medina.
Aye.
Director Flores.
Aye.
Director Sheffield.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director McNally. Aye. Director De La Torre.
Aye.
President Manieri.
Aye. Item C5, statements of abstention. Are there any statements of abstention this evening? Seeing none. Item C6, adjustments to the agenda, board or superintendent. Are there any adjustments this evening? Seeing none. Item C7, public comment on non-agenda items. At this time, we will open it up for public comment on non-agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to the board on non-agenda items only. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes each. During public comment, we kindly ask that you maintain a respectful and civil tone during your comments, keeping in mind that differing opinions are welcome. We would like to warn the public that according to our policy guidelines, personal attacks, offensive language, or disruptive behavior will not be tolerated and will lead to a discontinuance of your comments. Thank you for your cooperation in creating a constructive and inclusive meeting. And this evening, we have public comment from a few folks. If you would like to please come to the podium when your name is called. The first is Micah Carlin Goldberg. If you would like to come, followed by Gabriel Albavera.
Good evening, Superintendent Tranel and our school board members. Thank you for taking the time to listen tonight. Last year, we had a number of unsafe incidents happen in our school district, some of them incredibly tragic and some less so, but still detrimental to student learning. And at Steel Lane, we had a listening session where Superintendent Tranel came and listened to our concerns, and we really appreciated her clearing her schedule and coming to spend that hour with us and take the time to hear what we needed to say about safety at our site. But I have to say that in the 6 or 9 months or however long it's been since then, I've heard about a lot of listening. I haven't seen or heard much in the way of actual change. How are we changing how we're dealing with students who are violent and disruptive at school? How are we making sure that the other 25 or 35 kids in that room with the violent student who is acting out and needs a different placement, how are we dealing with their trauma, their need? We have students who were in a classroom with a violent student for almost the entire year last year, and those kids have PTSD. There is no doubt in my mind, right? You start hearing stuff and you can see the way they react, their bodies tense up. We did not serve the other 25 kids in that classroom by keeping the violent student in that room, right? We're supposed to have the least restrictive, appropriate placement. And when a student cannot be served by the general education population, they need a different placement. And we need our systems to work faster to get them there, right? We have non-public schools. There are kids that need to be there, and they need to not be traumatizing all of their classmates and their school with violent and disruptive behavior. And we need to actually see change in policy and in how we implement that policy. As a side note, your school board website, or the school district website still does not have the new address for the temporary location anywhere
Thank
on it as
you.
searched.
Thank you, Micah.
Thank you, Micah. Next is Gabriel Albavera.
Good evening, Board Superintendent Tranel. I want to take the time right now to appreciate the work that you all did. The last board meeting, cutting off those cowards online, as well as making sure you respond in the way that you did. As an educator, as a parent, as a grandparent, as an administrator at the school, the way you guys dealt with it was professional, and I greatly appreciate it. On a different topic, I also want to address some of the comments that were made regarding students up here on this podium. And it really hurts me and it pains me to hear the way some folks in the community demonize our students. We got students with challenging situations. We got students that come from different backgrounds that we all come from, but they're still young people. They're still people that we're trying to not only educate, we're trying to give them opportunities. We're trying to open not only their eyes, but their hearts as well. And it does take time. We cannot get rid of students the way we used to do things 15, 20 years ago. I don't want to go backwards. I want to go forwards. We have staff, we got counselors, we got therapists. We have folks that are not only waiting to work with students, but are willing to work with students. And we need to take that opportunity to make sure that we give our students and their families the resources to be successful. I think we have them. Could we use more? Absolutely. In talking to some of our parents, especially at my side at LC Allen High School, parents, are going through things as well. And so what things that we can do to support them as well. The last thing I want to say is that if we just all take a consideration and view these students as they were our family, maybe we would look at the situation a whole lot differently. And I know I do that with my students. I know our staff does the same at LC Allen High School, and we hope that we can do that across our district. I think our families and our community would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alravera. That concludes our public comment for this evening. Thank you for sharing your issues and concerns with us. This brings us to our D items for this evening, our reports, and starting with D1, California School Employee Association Santa Rosa 75 report. Do we have a report this evening? Great, thank you. And we'll welcome President Mary Lehman to the podium.
Good evening. Good evening, President Manieri, Governing Board, Superintendent Trinnell, Cabinet members, guests, and everyone listening tonight online and everyone present. I want to thank the board for changing the public comment to in-person. Welcome to all the new hires and promotions at the district office and all the new hired teachers, 111 to date, and the returning classified getting promotion among our ranks. We welcome new TOSAs, new special services, and special ed employees too. We started the year off with hope, hoping for positive things. The move to special services, from the move of special services, ed services, state and federal, and childcare from the district office to Stony Point. We hope everyone is beginning to feel settled there. CSEA wants to thank the board for approval of the tentative agreement and MOUs negotiated with the district at the end of June. All items were ratified by our members August 23rd. We appreciate the 8% salary and the medical benefit increase. I remind the board that the district and CSEA still have a tentative agreement from 2019 that has not been completed. The job descriptions are done, but the salary compensation study started by Cindy Brennan was never completed, and she has retired. We look forward to beginning this process as soon as possible. Last year, the safety committee was formed and addressed the need for more adults on campus by adding 30 more classified positions. EdJoin now has openings for campus supervisors, restorative specialists, family engagement facilitators, a student advisor, and student engagement activity workers. All of these positions still pay less than a living wage, except for restorative specialists. Yes, we are thankful classified employees received 8% salary increase across the board, and 8% medical benefits increase as well. After our increase was approved, supervisory, unrepresentative, and administrative staff received similar increases. The wage gap continues to widen. And yes, we still have over 150 classified job openings after the salary increase. Safety at the school sites continues to be a concern. I challenge us to use the resources we already have. How can we get more adults on campus? Again, let's use the resources we already have. Classified employees that are working less than 8 hours a day, who would like to work a couple more hours to make 8 hours total and get health benefits. We can start there. Each site should encourage their staff to help. Staff may even want to drive over to another campus, middle school or high school, for a few more hours of supervision. They can use Stop It app to report things. The benefits would be adults getting involved on campus, fostering a sense of community, perhaps contributing to their children's education, personal growth, or simply making a positive impact. We know that time can be a concern for adults. So flexible opportunities that can accommodate various schedules, emphasizing that any level of involvement would be valuable. Tonight, we are approving the site safety plans. Each school has their own safety plan. Do they include training for all staff? Do we have a list of who has received safety training? With all of our new administrators, teachers, and classified support staff, we are hoping to foster a more safety-oriented school culture, a change that is needed throughout Sonoma County schools, California schools, and the nation. To do this, we need to be more informed. CSEA's mission is to improve the lives of students, families, and the community. Help us do that. Thank you.
Thank you, President Lehman. Next is item D2, Santa Rosa Teachers Association report, and I will hand it over to President Howell.
There will be no report tonight from President Howell.
Thank you, Melanie. This brings us to item D3, Superintendent report.
Thank you, President Manieri, board, those who are with us in person and online. I'll keep this part short because I have more to share during the safety report. So with my tradition, today marks day 30 of the school year. So there's only 150 more days of opportunity to positively support our students. Yay! We had a successful middle school and high school back to school night the last 2 weeks. So thank you to everyone who supported and attended. I enjoyed helping out with supervision today at Slater Middle School during the lunchtime. And thank you to the principal and staff for all they are doing to support students and families. We had a team from multiple departments support the Vince Harper Day and Night Festival this past Saturday. Thank you for all who supported this event, all of our staff, and for those who came out. It was a great opportunity for multiple community organizations to be present to support our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Trinnell. Item D4 is the board president report. I will also keep my report short this evening. I was able to attend the Elsie Allen High School back to school night, which was really wonderful. Thank you for the invitation. It was really wonderful being able to talk to so many parents and get to listen to all the hopes that our parents have for their children for the rest of the school year. And I was also able to make it out to one of Elsie Allen's football games. It was really fun, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Item D5, board member reports. Do we have reports this evening? I see several, so we'll just go down this way and then go down this way. Thank you.
I'm up. I did on 9/15, I attended the Made in Santa Rosa Education Foundation's Back to School fundraiser, which was a great event. It was a good turnout, and I understand they raised more money than they did last year. And I got to see our former superintendent, Kitamura, and former trustee Joe McCormick at this event as well. I was just really happy to see the turnout, the interest in this foundation that is growing year by year. It was a pleasure to be there and represent the district. Also, I just wanted to add that I was in a meeting today wearing a different hat with Senator McGuire, our pro tem elect. And this is a really big deal for somebody who's coming from this region. He is heading the California State Senate, and we have his ear. He was giving a presentation today about his overview and vision for the Senate. And among his priorities, he addressed the need for public schools and community colleges and the attention that's needed there. He mentioned the hope of increases in per pupil spending as well. So I just want to bring that up for folks in the room who have an ear to these matters, to policy and direction from the state, as well as future potential funding opportunities. He also talked about CTE and career pathways. So, for those who know Senator McGuire or know of Senator McGuire, he's somebody who delivers on his word. So I just wanted to bring that up. Very proud of this guy who's gone this far and that he's very district focused. So that's it. He started out as a school board member, exactly, right.
Thank you, Director Sheffield. Director De La Cruz.
I was happy to be Ed's guest and table mate at the Made in Santa Rosa Foundation. And special shout out to Principal Amber Williams, who said, and I quote, "Education is key and enrichment unlocks the magic." And so just really grateful for the ways in which our community showed up to really support enrichment in a way that's very equity focused and really looks at where the greatest needs in our community are, where there's the most kind of impact and the most joy that will happen in bringing these kinds of resources to schools that need us the most. So super grateful for that. I also got to go to back to school night for my two kids, Santa Rosa Middle, Santa Rosa High School. Special shout out to the amazing administrators at Santa Rosa High who had a special gathering for Spanish language speaking parents, and just all of the love that was shown to a big majority of parents in our community who really just appreciated the opportunity to receive information in their language, to ask questions with a lot of confianza, and really grateful for that effort. A little bit more needs to happen inside of the classroom because those parents who showed up for that session were also going around from classroom to classroom, and that wasn't quite the same experience, right? Then it really, you could see the shift happen where we turn right back into kind of like business as usual, English only inside of our classrooms, and still some of those parents needing to find ways to connect. Santa Rosa Middle did a beautiful job actually utilizing student translators who were doing their absolute best. It was really beautiful to watch kids love on their skill set and to be engaged in that way and to be asked to help, to add that value to making their parents and all the community members who really needed that translation at back to school night proud and to feel super useful. So adelante. I also just wanted to say thank you to the parents who que levantaron sus voces con tanta confianza para pedir traducción, right? So just thank you to all the parents who lifted up their voices with a lot of pride to ask for their right to have information translated for them in their languages. And so esta sí es una institución que toma en cuenta toda la gente que están parte de nuestra comunidad y que es la meta de nosotros tratarlos con respeto y con cariño y reconociendo esa habilidad que tienen. So it's the goal of our district to make sure that everybody who's in our district is respected and loved on, and recognizing those needs that they bring, and also the value of being bilingual and being multicultural in our system. So thank you, Santa Rosa City Schools, woohoo back to school night.
Thank you. Director McNally.
So I was able to attend a few of our middle school back to school nights, and I saw some really wonderful things there at both Comstock and Santa Rosa Middle School. I was able to sit in on some teachers' presentations, and I just loved seeing how our teachers build rapport and relationships with our families. I did notice, as Director De La Cruz mentioned, there was some inconsistency in the translation services offered, but I really want to commend the staff and students who did offer that translation. And then at CCLA, I loved how they brought food and music into their back to school night. It was a really great atmosphere. So I just wanted to say thank you to the administrators and staff who put those back to school nights together, and to the families who came out to support their children.
Thank you, Director McNally. Vice President Medina.
Thank you. First, I'd like to report in relation to the collaborative meeting between the City of Santa Rosa and us, our district. We had our second meeting this past Monday. It was Director De La Torre, Director De La Cruz, and myself. We came together to discuss the prioritization of issues. It was a very passionate meeting. We collectively decided to begin to focus on the issue of school safety. At our next meeting, city staff will be working to bring staff from the Measure H, formerly Measure O funded violence prevention program as we move forward to address issues in a collaborative manner. Two things that were mentioned there that I suggest people interested in the issue of public safety in our schools and in our community. Potentially at the October 9th City Council meeting, there will be a presentation on the Violence Prevention Program Strategic Plan. And then potentially at the October 24th meeting, there will be a public safety subcommittee subcommittee presentation. So things to look forward to on that. I did also want to report that, let's see, this past Saturday, it was great to see at Santa Rosa High School, a lot of our students engaged volunteering as the Mexican consulate was hosted. There were staff and students really doing a great job helping out. There was a lot of people. It was a very impactful event. It was great to see that. I'd like to thank all the organizations involved, Redwood Food Bank, Humanidad, Latino Student Congress, the Mecha Students, Migrant Education, and the District Attorney's Office, Líderes del Futuro, for all the work to put that event on that campus, which I think there's interest to do it again in the future. I did also meet with some students from Sonoma State this past Sunday, expressing concern about some recent tuition fee increases at the CSU, which will impact our students in the future. It'll be 5 years of 6% increases. So they're asking for support in helping them to try to reverse these fees by connecting them with some of our state elected officials. So I'm working with them to do that because it does impact the future of our students here. And aside from that, I'm looking forward to attending the State of the Latino tomorrow at Sonoma State and going to the California Latino School Board Association Conference this weekend, along with Director McNally. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Medina. And on this side, Director De La Torre.
Thank you very much. I also had a great opportunity to, was invited by the Imaginist to see a production of Casi Casa. And this is a nonprofit group of actors that had collaborated with Luther Burbank Elementary second graders to put together a production that they are now performing this year. It was a bilingual performance. It was a lot of fun. Consider nature-loving abuela meets the Magic School Bus Mrs. Fritz. So it was really cool. I brought my son and some of his friends, and we really enjoyed the experience. And it was neat to see a production that happened with the collaboration of our students. They are able to provide performances free of charge for Luther Burbank Elementary K through third grade students. And that was going to take place. Went to middle school back to school nights. That was amazing. It's just great to see the community, get your feet on the ground, be a part of the process, talk to parents, talk to teachers. Got out to a couple more football games, Montgomery High School, and traveled with Creo down to Petaluma to watch them compete. Back to school night for high school, I got to be a dad and be at Creo for the night. And that was a great experience. And I just wanted to end my report with gratitude and thanks to Superintendent Chernell and her leadership team and the work that they put in with SRPD and the community to avoid some potential dangerous situations. Obviously, incidents have been publicized and in the news, and you get a lot of negativity with those situations. With these instances, the stop out was used. A community member saw some potentially dangerous behavior, reported it, and the leadership team was working throughout the early morning hours with SRPD to investigate if threats were viable, and guns were removed from the streets. So that is a win. Those were things that we have in place that work together. The communication between all the leaders involved to ensure our students were safe was met with my gratitude. And I look forward to having active conversations with other potential community groups that would like to work with the district to mitigate safety.
Thank you, Director De La Torre, and thank you, board members, for your report. It's definitely been, oh, one more report. All right, Director Flores.
So I also went to the Imaginist meeting. So thank you for bringing that up. And I just, I'm not going to reiterate what you said. I just want to say ditto. And I just would like to say thank you to all the classified and certificated staff in the district. You are out there day in, day out, and you're commitment to our district doesn't go unnoticed. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Flores. And to move us along, I just want to also express my gratitude to board members for supporting our district in the many different ways that you've done that over the past couple of weeks. And we look forward to continuing being in community with the folks that we serve. The next item on our agenda is item D6, Safety Report, and I will hand this over to Superintendent Trinnell.
Thank you, President Manieri, members of the board. Again, those who are with us in person and online, I have several things to share tonight. And so I'm going to start with the Safety Advisory Roundtable, or the SART group. We have reconvened. We had our first meeting of the new school year last Monday. I began the meeting by reviewing action items that are a part of the strategic plan and the progress on those action items. We also talked about some of the positions that were built into the plan and also funded, and I'll talk about those in a moment, funded through our LCAP, and where we stand with those positions that are filled and those that are vacant. We will be meeting monthly going forward, and we'll continue to monitor the outcomes of the action items and potentially identify revisions of the strategic plan, because it is a fluid process. On that note, I would like to provide an update on several fronts. First, starting with mental health and counseling. We kicked off this school year with a theme at every school about what is your hope. We asked students, staff, and families to think about what is their hope for this school year. And each school site has found their own way of documenting that and finding opportunities to be able to memorialize that feedback. We were hoping to inspire positivity and connection with our students, staff, and families through that process. We started the school year by encouraging every school site to consider how they will embed social emotional learning strategies and wellness through the themes in the first few weeks of the school year to reinforce that we have support available and there are ways that we can provide support through these various strategies. Through the SART strategic plan and the LCAP, we've worked to increase positions at our school sites. For example, with our restorative specialists, we're still trying to hire 4 positions. 24 positions are filled or are in the process of a new person starting and going through the hiring process. Family engagement facilitators is another position that went through this process with SART and the LCAP. We're still trying to hire 9 more family engagement facilitators. 20 positions are filled or in the process of a new person being onboarded. Under safety and security, to continue the conversation about positions, through the SART and LCAP process, we increased the number of campus supervisor positions for middle schools and for high schools, which is where these positions now reside. We have 1 for middle schools, which is an increase from 0 to 1, because middle schools, with the exception of CCLA, did not have campus supervisors. We have 4 campus supervisors for high school and 2 for Ridgeway. That is an increase from 2 people that was already staffed or positions that were established to 4 per high school. And then 2 out of our 4 middle schools has been able to successfully hire a campus supervisor so far. 4 of our high schools have 2 positions filled and are still looking for 2 more. 1 of our high schools was able to fill 3 of the 4 positions, and Ridgeway needs 1 more. So we still have vacancies in these positions, and we encourage people to look at them and join our team. We are deploying district office administrators on a weekly basis to assist with supervision needs at our school sites for additional people on our campuses. The Sonoma County Office of Education has offered an administrator from their team to become a permanent resident in our district for the remainder of this school year. And this person is currently deployed as an extra assistant principal at Slater and Rincon Valley Middle School for the remainder of the school year. I also want to talk about other elements of safety that people don't typically think about. And one of those is food scarcity, and also connections to our schools. So we have student workers in our cafeterias who volunteer to spend time with warm and welcoming adults to learn a marketable skill. Student workers in cafeterias report they have strong relationships with our child nutrition services staff as the primary reason they applied to work in the cafeteria. Our menu choice, excuse me, I'm not speaking very clearly. Our menu choices reflect student identities. We have some examples and reports from parents and from our students that because of the variety of food choices, that they feel more connected in our schools. And we're hearing very positive things about the new menu options that are coming out of our Child Nutrition Services Department and our cafeterias. So we very much appreciate that. Also, our Child Nutrition Services Department is partnering with our schools to provide resources for teachers relating to food to connect to core academic subjects. Among them is a social studies lesson plan related to grape growing and the Delano grape strike as an example. These efforts connect the food served in the cafeteria to the lessons students learn in classrooms, creating more connections. Shifting now, starting the school year. We started this school year by asking our school sites to begin the process of practicing safety drills so that our students would know what safety drills were available as we go out through the year. And I know that school sites did that in different ways and will continue to enact these drills legally and also respectfully throughout the school year. With the hire of our coordinator of wellness and engagement, we have begun training around gang awareness with all of our administrators, and we'll next be offering these trainings at the school site level with our staff. We're going to continue promoting the use of the Stop It app for our middle schools and our high schools, and I'm also getting questions about elementary. So I'll be following up with my team on what is available to assist our elementary schools so that our students also have an opportunity to anonymously report things that they may hear. And we want to thank the many who have already utilized this app in order to help us quickly to reduce incidents on our campuses. Under the lens of facilities and safety, all of the bathrooms that were completely redone at our high schools are now complete. There are a few little details that we are working on, but for the most part, the work is done. Unfortunately, we are seeing vandalism of these brand new bathrooms. Fortunately, based on the materials that we used for these bathrooms, it is much easier to clean and get rid of graffiti. Unfortunately, for things that are broken off of the walls and installs and things, that does take time for us to replace. So I do want to say that it's very few who are doing this, and I want to commend our students for being very respectful of the school environment, including the bathrooms. All of our schools also are receiving a threat assessment of the facilities, which is through our facilities master plan process. We're going to be bringing more information to the board at our meeting in November regarding the entire draft report of the facilities master plan. Under communication and transparency, we are working with our consultants that the board approved for us to work with to create materials to promote the voices of our students, our families, and our staff so that we are hearing from them directly and so that our community can also hear from them. So we are beginning the process of that work. We share information via radio stations on a regular basis as well. KBBF is one of those platforms that we have a seat twice a month to be able to connect with our community as an example. We are working collaboratively with emergency service agencies to have open lines of communication, no matter the hour of the day or day of the week, as I can attest. Receiving a call at 2 a.m., being up and with emergency services between 2 and 4 a.m. to make sure that our schools were safe on that day and that there were no incidents. And that is what we're willing to do day, night, weekends, to make sure that that happens. And we appreciate the communication that our stakeholders, that our students, our families, and our staff are engaging with us. Another example is we don't want surprises. And so when we can, any communications that go district-wide, we do try and give our staff a courtesy so that they know what is going out before it goes public. I want to appreciate the recent communications with the media in helping us to get the word out about various things, such as what is happening tonight with the limitation of public comment to in-person only. And so I just want to acknowledge that as well as we're working with our media agencies. And with that, I will hand it back to you.
Thank you, Superintendent Chernell. We appreciate all of the work that you are doing and that you are leading, and all of the staff who are a part of this work. Thank you so much for doing everything that you can and that we can to keep our communities, our staff, our students, our families safe. So thank you. And yeah, we have a question.
Superintendent, I just have one quick question about your report. And thank you for the report. Very thorough, a lot of information. We have a pretty sizable audience. I'm just wondering if you can boil it down to like the total number of new positions that places an adult on our campuses. Where are we at right now? Yes. I know, some quick math. Yes, I know. And I was trying to tally as you were, but yes.
Oh,
You've got it.
microphone.
Yeah.
Sorry, people online cannot hear me.
There we
So thank you for the question. Just give us a moment to do some quick
Sure.
math and maybe I can come back.
Hate to put you on
it.
the spot, but thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't tally it up. I just kind of went down to the unique levels of the positions, but thank you for the question.
Can we add one more thing to that quick tally? Maybe the number of positions that are still open for people to apply to, and where they can find access to those job descriptions and job openings quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Chernell, and we look forward to that number and to future updates. I also understand that in the future, we will have other folks joining us for that report, for this report or this section of our agenda. So we look forward to having conversations with those folks. The next item is D7 CSBA report. Do we have a report this evening?
I do not have one.
Okay, thank you. This brings us to our first action item of the evening, E1, approval of resolution proclaiming October 12th, 2023 as Indigenous Peoples' Day. And I'm going to hand this action item over to Vice President Medina.
Thank you, President Manieri. Before I begin, I'd like to thank our members of the Indian Education Committee present for the land acknowledgement and for being here for this resolution. Thank you. We recognize Indigenous Peoples' Day to boldly affirm that October 12th, 1492 marks a profound moment in history. Not for Columbus's supposed discovery, but for the resilient Indigenous peoples who had thrived on this land for millennia before his arrival. Columbus, lost in his quest for a new route to Asia, unintentionally landed in what is now known as the Bahamas, foreshadowing centuries of European colonization across the Americas. This day is a testament to over 500 years of Indigenous resistance, struggle, and unwavering determination to simply survive. Indigenous Peoples' Day is a powerful declaration that we honor the enduring legacy of the countless Indigenous nations who have not only endured the horrors of colonization, but have thrived in the face of adversity. It is a celebration of the wisdom, knowledge, and cultural richness that Indigenous peoples have contributed to our shared humanity, despite centuries of marginalization, oppression, and violence. Recognizing Indigenous Peoples' Day is an act of solidarity, a commitment to justice, and an acknowledgement that we must confront our history honestly, educate ourselves, and work together to support the ongoing struggle for Indigenous rights and sovereignty. On this day, we recognize that the strength of Indigenous communities is an inspiration to us all, a reminder that the power of resilience and the spirit of survival can never be extinguished. It is a day to celebrate Indigenous cultures, promote Indigenous voices, and stand united in pursuit of justice, equality, and the rights to self-determination for all Indigenous people. It is in this spirit that I present this resolution today for us to recognize October 12th, 2023 as Indigenous Peoples' Day. And in the pursuit of broader education and a deeper understanding of our shared history, I did have a request that an article from 30 years ago on Gail LeBaron's notebook be attached to this agenda item. And it's titled, "Within 30 Years, the Santa Rosa Indians Were Gone." It offers some valuable insights into the complex and tragic history of our local Indigenous communities. Additionally, I'd also like to highlight and invite everyone to read an article published in the San Francisco Chronicle on September 19th. It's titled, "White Man's Justice, Untold Story of a Killing That Changed History." This article delves into the tragic murder of Richard Oakes right here in Sonoma County. Richard Oakes is known for his pivotal role in leading the occupation of Alcatraz Island in November 1969. It was 51 years ago when he was murdered. This occupation was a momentous event that catalyzed change and drew attention to the struggles and injustices faced by Indigenous people in the United States. And with that, I give it back to you, President Manieri.
Thank you, Vice President Medina. We appreciate that presentation and the words that you shared in recognition of this really important resolution. This is an action item. Are there any board member questions at this time? Seeing none, we will move to public comment. I have no blue cards on this item, so it comes back to the board for further discussion or a motion. I see Vice President Medina's hand and Director Sheffield's hand.
I'd like to move that we adopt the resolution proclaiming October 12th, 2023 as Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Second.
A second.
Thank you, Director Medina. That was seconded by Director De La Cruz. Before I ask for roll call, is there any additional discussion from the board? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Director Rao,
Aye.
Director Medina,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director Sheffield,
Aye.
Director McNally,
Aye.
Director Flores,
Aye.
Director De La Torre,
Aye.
President Manieri.
Aye, thank you. Item E2 is a discussion item, Elsie Allen New School Model Update. This discussion item is on the new school model, which is focused on operationalizing our graduate profile by expanding a K-12 dual immersion pathway from Cesar Chavez Language Academy to Elsie Allen High School and expanding the career technical education offerings at Elsie Allen High School. And we have a great team joining us this evening, both from CCLA and Elsie Allen High School. And I'm going to hand this over to Dr. Castro.
Good evening, Superintendent Trinnell, President Manieri, members of the board, and the students, staff, and community of Santa Rosa City Schools. We're excited to bring you the update for the new school model at Elsie Allen, as described by President Manieri, which describes the continuing development of the dual immersion pathway from Cesar Chavez Language Academy to Elsie Allen High School and building a robust career technical education program set of offerings. Go ahead and turn it over to Executive Director Tim Zelenardo to start the presentation.
Good evening, Superintendent Trinnell, President Manieri, and members of the board. That was me, unfortunately, making a little noise up above as I was getting the webinar set up. So sorry. So I'm a moment behind now because I closed it so I wouldn't be noisy. Thought I had it on mute. So let me make sure I share my screen and get the presentation going. Give me one more second. All right, thank you for your patience. So we are here this evening to speak to the new school model and really just the approach within Santa Rosa City Schools to support our students with opportunities in multilingual experiences, to make sure we're not a monolingual institution, and to make sure students have access to multiple opportunities for enriched, valuable learning. And that being said, I'm going to turn it over to colleagues and kind of move out of the way as we go along. And the first thing I'll turn it over to is history and kind of background, which I'll ask Mr. Albavera to speak to. And thank you for speaking this evening before the this presentation earlier.
Appreciate the time. Board Superintendent Tranel, we are excited not only to be here, but to share with you kind of the steps that we've taken in regards to our new school model and the support that we've been receiving, not only from yourselves, but also CTE Foundation. I think some of you remember this slide. We've had it out here probably a couple of times already. As we can see the steps since the last presentation, most of all, it was created as we were working with our design team that included staff, students, and community partners. And at that time, it was led by Karina Huey. The new school model included all of what we are working on at the time: CTE, K-12, dual immersion, university program, ethnic studies, athletics, AVID, restorative justice. And what we came up with was really at the center, we ended up having our graduate profile, which is kind of what's been leading our work in this program. So here's our graduate profile. Again, it was created, gosh, it was almost now 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. A couple of the students are with us at LC Allen that were at Cesar Chavez Language Academy. And again, at that time, it was important for the students that our graduate profile be bilingual. And so we decided to make sure that we had that in all of our rooms, classrooms throughout the campus. Next slide. So what's happening now? So this year, every year, we get with our department chairs to kind of look at a focus for the beginning of the year. And this year, we decided to, again, have 3 goals of graduate profile leading our work, and then having a student and teacher voice. With the great recommendation by Assistant Suba Castro in regards to street data, we found it that it was a need for our students to have voice in the classroom, and we ended up passing that along to our staff as well. The graduate profile continues to be refined and implemented through our departments and some of our PLCs. And I think Ms. Raffles is going to talk a little bit about that. That's kind of also broken off into instructional learning teams as well. And so what we've tried to do is get more of our staff involved, including some of our newer staff, as kind of encourage them to take some leadership roles within our school as well. Student voice and student culture create environments where students are seen, heard, and supportive in achieving our graduate profile. And we try to do that as an administrative team and model that with our staff as well. And then in regards to teachers, we want to make sure that we continue to offer them professional learning opportunities as well as collaboration. Cultivate environments where teachers are seen, heard, and supported as well to grow and learn together. Again, we're trying to make sure that we have a pedagogy of voice so that students are given the opportunity to have agency, as well as trying to flip our pedagogy to center student and teacher voice within the classroom. Slide. Okay. Let me change my page here. As you can see, there's a few things that we got going on. Of course, the dual immersion. We have a dual immersion TOSA that got hired. We also have sections in the dual immersion pathway that we've kind of created. And again, it's a work in progress. We've kind of been grandfathering these in. We have a section in world history, physical education, and of course, the sections in Spanish for Spanish speakers. Again, this assists for our students that are looking for that are coming from Cesar Chavez with a dual language background as well. But it also assists our newcomer students that are coming without the English background, but are able to take physical education, which is a class that's needed for graduation, as well as a world history class, which is needed for graduation as well. We also have obviously our ethnic studies sections in English, drama, music, and dance. Again, they're always extremely important. One of the things that came about this past year out of our Youth Truth survey was that we were getting some feedback from our students, especially our newcomer students, that they didn't feel safe on our campus. And I mean, again, I can't imagine coming into a new country, not knowing the language, and coming into a school as big as LC Allen High School. It could be a little bit intimidating. And so we got some of that feedback, and we decided this year to create a newcomer center above our library to support our students, our family engagement facilitators, kind of monitor that area. We have some resources available for our students. And more importantly, I think what it ends up giving, it's a kind of a home away from home. We want it to be that feeling for them. We got the idea from the couple times that we took trips to Tennyson High School, because they have something similar for their newcomer students there. And we thought, let's try to have something here so that our students can feel safe. Trying to think what else. We've done cross-site collaboration with CCLA students in LC Allen High School. Our band plays along with Cesar Chavez's band. They do a phenomenal job. Mr. Thompson and Mr. Nava have done, this is the thing that we wanted to try to build on and be able to not only do it with band, but do it with other programs as well. Our admin team has gone to coffee with the principal. With Ms. Diaz, she cordially invites us, and we take our students, some of our students, to go present also to the Cesar Chavez parents as well. We want to continue professional development and site visits for teachers, classified, and administration. Again, just to name a few, we went to the Lindsay trip last school year. We're going to go again in October. We've done CABE, NABE, ATDLE, and we've also participated in CALSA events as well as La Cosecha in New Mexico. And I think, and I just want to add to this in regards to the Newcomer Center, just to give you an idea of how many more newcomers we're getting every year. We've taken a little bit of data. So in 2020, I'm trying to find it, 21, 22, we had 18 newcomer students that came to us at this same time in that year. 22, 23, we had 20 newcomer students this time that year. So far this year, we have 36 newcomer students. We just had a phenomenal 3 brothers that just came to us from Haiti. There is nothing more beautiful than to see Haitian students speaking their French and learning Spanish at the same time, and our Spanish-speaking students learning bonjour. I mean, it's incredible. It's beautiful. So these are some of the things that are happening now as we working at LCI. I don't know if my directora wants to add more.
Yeah, so we always appreciate the admin team. I can't talk. Casey and Mr. Rivera to come over and participate in our coffee chats. But not only that, but like Director McNally said, having them come over and participate in our back to school night, having the bands play together, and having our kids come and support them during their football games and things like that is super important. And especially because we want to highlight a lot of the great things that are happening at LC Allen, and we want to do it early, before open enrollment happens, right? So we're hoping that we're gonna have a parent night hopefully coming up soon.
That's our hope.
Okay. And just to continue that conversation, right, that we want to support our students regardless of when they're at CCLA. One of the other things that we're gonna start doing, and kind of reciprocal, they don't know this yet, so it's hot off the press, is that we want to come into LC Allen and support some of our students that have gone through CCLA who are now at LC Allen. So they understand that they're ours regardless of they left us, right? We want to have them know that we're going to be there for them until they graduate and beyond. So I know that our assistant principal Mendoza already went. Because one of their kiddos had left their backpack in our office. And so we wanted to deliver that, but it also gave us an opportunity to continue that rapport with our students and say, we're here for you. And we want to make sure that that continues. So regardless of where our kids go, they're our students from the minute they step on to our campuses since TK. So we'll continue that articulation. And then we'll be going to Lindsay in a couple of weeks. So we'll have some teachers from CCLA as well as LC, and we really are looking forward to that continuous work.
Next slide.
Mr. Cunningham's over there.
Good evening, Board and Superintendent Anderson. My name is Casey Cunningham. I'm an assistant principal at Elsion High School. I'm not as good as them, so mine is scripted. But for the past month and a half, I've been working with two amazing individuals. Our CTE TOSA from Santa Rosa City Schools, Dr. Damian Mason, as well as our rock star CTE TOSA at our school, Lauren Leota. Together, we've created a template for building our pathway courses, which includes mapping the standards for each assignment within the class. Right now, we have been working on an introduction class to our new education pathway, which allows us to use the same process to redesign existing pathways and to create our new ones. This will ensure that all of our classes within our pathways will be aligned with CTE and Common Core standards. They are A through G approved and include multiple opportunities for work-based learning experiences. To talk briefly about this new education pathway that we have established a primary design team that has currently completed construction of our first course. Within the next month, this course will be reviewed by our secondary design team, and it's made up of students, teachers, parents, counselors, and industry partners. Now that this education class is moving forward, we are now focusing on replicating this process with our goal of completing our second year concentrator course in our public and community health pathway. We are very proud and excited of what we're doing, and we love to share it for anybody who's interested.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Debbie Cardozo. I'm a director that oversees career technical education. And yes, we're very proud of the work that we've done thus far. Our introduction to healthcare consists of 2 sections right now, 59 students. And so that started this fall. And we're looking forward to continuing to grow and expand the program. And of course, there's agriculture and public safety currently existing at the site. So we're also looking at continuing to redesign those programs as well. We have been supporting teachers with securing their designated CTE subjects credential, leveraging grant funding. As we're building these new programs, we need properly credentialed instructors so we could access additional CTE funding at the state and federal level. So that's an important piece, and appreciate the district support and your support around that. We, as Casey mentioned, are expanding work-based learning opportunities for students. We had an amazing career conference in the spring last year, and we're partnering with the CTE Foundation to provide an orientation for our industry partners to learn a little bit more about work-based learning and get more involved. And so more to come with that. We have been very fortunate to secure another grant, which I'll speak to in a moment, that is actually helping us identify additional early college credit opportunities, specifically dual enrollment. So we have a really strong partnership both with Santa Rosa Junior College and Sonoma State. We have existing articulation agreements where students in CTE programs can earn early college credit through a credit by exam process. This is different. This is dual enrollment. And so it's new, it's exciting, and we're just really looking forward to expanding, again, our partnerships with our post-secondary institutions so our students can start earning credentials and getting ready early on before they even graduate. And then one of the things I'm probably most excited about is we're exploring integrated pathway development. And what that means is we're connecting our CTE courses to our core academic courses where they can do cross-curricular projects. And so we have our new public and community health program. And so they're actually connected this year to a Stats for Social Justice course. And as we know in public and community health, there are understanding disparities. I can't talk today. I'm excited about it. I can't wait to share. In population, access to healthcare, lifespan. And what's really great is that the Stats for Social Justice course is being used as a lens to analyze these issues. And so we're bringing core academic content to life. And as we're building our new programs and redesigning our existing programs, we are developing opportunities for alignment and intentionally linking the standards. And so that's very exciting, not only as practitioners doing the work, but for our students and the types of experiences that they will have in these classes.
Good evening, Board. Elovigia Llamas, Director of Multilingual Services. We are really excited. I just have to share our dual language immersion TOSA was hired this summer, and we were fortunate enough to have Mariel Montesinos, who is a long-time teacher at Cesar Chavez Language Academy. So she knows the work that has been happening at Cesar Chavez Language Academy and now is bringing that wealth of knowledge to the work that she's doing with the expansion of the dual language immersion program at LC Allen. With that, a lot is underway in terms of working and scheduling monthly dual language immersion team meetings so that we can discuss what the work is both at Cesar Chavez and at LC Allen. She works at both sites during the week, and so she's able to be involved with what's happening at Cesar Chavez and then also at LC Allen. We're in the process of identifying our DLI advisory team members, and they will be a combination of community members, staff members, parents, and also administrators to be able to really help us look at the next steps for dual language immersion. We have a goal of having a dual language immersion master plan that will be connected to our English learner master plan and really looking at what dual immersion looks like for Santa Rosa City Schools moving forward. We are also in the process of identifying our parents for the Comité Asesor de Padres because we want our parents' voice in the work that's happening daily with regards to our dual language immersion. They asked for this program, they asked for the expansion, and so now we need them involved in how we're going to sustain this work moving forward. We're continuing to really work on identifying and encouraging our current teachers who have single subjects that are at LC Allen with encouraging them to get their bilingual authorization so that they're able to teach the courses in Spanish at LC Allen. I'm happy to report that Multilingual Services now has oversight of the it's called North Bay Bilingual Teacher Residency Grant. We're excited because right now the focus really is on the teacher residents at Cesar Chavez Language Academy, but our advocacy is to ensure that it continues and that it follows a pathway so that our teachers we can have teacher residents at LC Allen High School. Also, we're in the process of working on the recruitment and marketing for our program, just in general dual immersion, but highlighting Cesar Chavez and LC Allen. And we're excited about the professional development opportunities such as a visit to Lindsay and then a few conferences like La Cosecha, ATDLE, which is the Association of Two-Way Dual Language Immersion, and then California Association of Bilingual Education. Sorry, that's me. So we grant funds, we are in year 2 of our dual language immersion grant. And so we are really working on the focus of this grant really for us was on the expansion of the dual language immersion program through professional development, through collaboration time, and really with a focus on identifying time for our teachers that are teaching dual language immersion courses to have time to be able to develop their curriculum because we find that that is not available always. So there's a lot of planning time in collaboration with our teacher on special assignment to support the teachers at LC Allen who are underway working with the dual language immersion teachers currently.
And as you know, in partnership with the CTE Foundation of Sonoma County, we were able to secure an ARPA grant, so American Rescue Plan Act grant last school year. Very thankful for that funding because we're really leveraging those funds a lot to really transform LC Allen High School. And as Principal Albavera shared, we're focusing on the graduate profile, professional development, development of new CTE programs, integrated programs, and also coinciding with the work that's going on around the DLI. And then finally, very excited to share with you, just recently, we secured a $100,000 grant, a college and career access pathway grant, specifically for LC Allen High School to support the development of dual enrollment partnership agreements with the SRCS, again, to give students access to early college credits while in high school. So that's new, and we're looking at leveraging the work that is done at LC Allen High School as a model for the district moving forward around dual enrollment and those types of agreements. So considerations moving forward, we know that there's been a lot of great work that has happened thus far, but we do have some additional work to do and some things to consider that we'd like to share with you tonight. In regards to building CTE programs and connecting them to CCLA, we're really focused right now on building those programs and redesigning those programs at the high school level, but also with the lens that we want to connect those programs to CCLA. So for example, and I believe I've shared this before, with the education program, we're being very intentional that we know that we want our LC Allen students to go down to CCLA, to the high school, or to the, excuse me, the elementary level, middle school level, to mentor those students, to tutor those students. And so they get connected early on, and it feeds that bridge and that connection that's so important in school. And so we're also looking at possible CTE courses at the middle school level. So how can we do some additional career exploration so kids can make a more informed decision before they land at LC Allen High School and what pathway that they actually want to choose. And so we're excited about that work, and that's definitely in our long-term planning and something that we're considering moving forward.
Everybody wants a mic. It's like my house.
I don't want to be in the hot seat. No, so, okay, so expanding CCLA, one of the things that I did forget to mention, one of the works, the collaboration. So our PE teacher, Miss Natalie Villagomez, who's also does our dance class, has been collaborating with the dance teacher and the PE teacher at LC. So we're going to be taking some students over there and doing some collaboration there, but also starting a color guard at CCLA to join the band, because you can't have the band without our color guard. So I did forget to mention that. But one of the things that as I began this work last year, one of the questions was, how do we support the LC Allen pathway dual immersion with the numbers and the setup that we have right now for CCLA? And honestly, the question is, do we need to expand it? And the answer is yes, because as it stands right now, we're graduating. Last year, we had 30 students graduate from our dual language immersion track in 8th grade. This year, we have 60, but that's going to be the cap as CCLA is right now with the numbers that we have. So the conversation needs to be, how do we expand our dual language immersion program to be able to have the numbers to be able to feed into LC Allen?
So with that, along the lines of the new MOU that you is later on in the meeting, is really working with Sonoma State University along with Napa Valley Unified with that grant that we have. And our advocacy is around ensuring that Sonoma State understands that we now have the expansion of the dual immersion pathway, and that we need to identify teacher residents who will have a single subject and bilingual authorization to be able to support the work that's happening at LC Allen.
If I could add that real quick. So when I came on board at LC now 6 years ago, we had about 3 staff members that were bilingual. We are now at 14 staff members that are bilingual. Of those 14, we've hired 10 in the last 4 years, and we got 1 bilingual staff member in each department right now. We've been lucky to grow that. We've had folks coming from outside of the area, Southern California, phenomenal teachers. We can still build on that, but we just need to make sure we get that support as well.
All right, good evening, Board, Superintendent Tranel. I'm Erica Raffo. I'm the Vice Principal, LC Allen High School. I wanted to share with you a few challenges that we're experiencing relating to enrollment and feeder patterns. I want to preface it by saying the CTE Foundation has invested an enormous amount of time and money into helping us transform our school. We keep using that word transform, as has you, all of you, and our district. Our administrators, our teachers, and our district office staff have also invested countless hours as we work together to create a school that can offer a truly transformative educational experience for our students.
As we move forward, we need to consider the policies, the practices, the communications that either intentionally or unintentionally encourage students to continue transferring away from our school. Our enrollment has continued to decline over the last 3 years. 21-22 school year, we had 1,091 students. 22-23 last year, we had 1,042. This year, as of today, we have 995. So that's an overall decline of about 96, about 100 students. This last year, 150 incoming ninth grade students transferred away from LC Allen to other district high schools. 15% of those incoming ninth graders attended CCLA in 8th grade, and 85% of them attended other middle schools within our district. So as an educator who has spent her entire career with Santa Rosa City Schools and at LC Allen High School, I believe passionately in our students and in this work. And so these are just some things I think that we need to think about, along with what Mrs. Diaz has shared with us about possibly expanding dual immersion.
Just to that, and thank you so much. There would have been more because of the transfer process that we allow in our district, but we actually denied any late requests, which is one of the first times that we've done that. In the past, we've allowed everything. And so we realize that we need to build back and support Elsie, and that also means supporting our other schools and our home schools. I just want to add that detail.
Can I just add one more little thing to that? You know, a few years ago when we made that change with CCLA, I don't know if you guys remember, a lot of our staff was here saying this is going to happen. I was ones, it's not going to happen. And now I have to eat my words in regards to that. So I got to be transparent about that. And we need your help in order to stop that. If we're going to have a policy, let's follow through with it.
Good evening again. Tim Zolinardo, Executive Director in Educational Services. And what I'll end with in a brief 2 minutes is the following. Some sobering information at the end, but also lots of uplifting, heartwarming, and kind of really intense, true, really focused work that was shared as well about what is going into all the lives and the family and the community of LC Allen High School. So I was thinking recently, just today, about some ways in which, as you know, Mr. Rivera and Ms. Rafa were mentioning, like holding up LC Allen. And one thing is we never want to have our schools compete with each other, but we are doing something at LC Allen that is distinctly different. It can be trumpeted from the rooftops. It can be held up as something unique. It respects and encourages a recognition of indigeneity that we don't have necessarily held up to the same level in our other schools. It does, as I started, push back on monolingual systems and recognizes the fact that we should be multilingual. And of course, definitely in our area, at least bilingualism with our largest populations. It also holds up to these notions of cultural and linguistic wealth, and the sense that our communities and the families that inhabit them bring with them riches of experience that are indigenous kind of epistemologies that are not necessarily recognized by mainstream culture. We can trumpet these things, we can hold these up, and we will not in any way be slighting any other school or any other efforts in our district. And I think we should consider that as an offering for us to reflect on. Other than that, I thank all the folks who are involved in the work and our students and families for the trust they place in us. And we thank you and open it up to the Board of Education for follow-up questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that presentation and all of the work that's been done up until this point. I definitely have a lot of questions, but I'm happy to open it up to board members first. So we started this way last time. We'll start this way during this item.
Thank you for that very thorough, that was me, right? Thank you, President Manieri, for that very thorough presentation. I have only a couple of questions here. In terms of the 60 graduates from CCLA, what was our enrollment at LC Allen from those 60 students that graduated?
So just a correction. So we have 68 graders now that would be matriculating into LC or their home school or, you know, wherever they're choosing. But last year we had 30 students that graduated.
And of those, how many enrolled?
We have 6 of those students at LC Allen.
Okay, so, because I heard that the numbers were low, so, and I just want to make sure that we're transparent. And then I heard what you said, I was going to call you President Alvera.
You're going to call me by my
Principal
first name. That's all right.
Alvera.
President's fine too.
You know, so what sort of things are you looking for in order for us to support, you know, the feeder pattern into LC, right? Because I don't want to rehash what happened in the past, but this was one of the concerns that this board, this is before I got on the board, right? I had in terms of feeding into LC. So I'm asking you, maybe I'm asking the superintendent too, what sort of things do you need, or what sort of policies do you want from us to ensure that our, you know, program is well enrolled?
I think there's a few things, but going back to what Directora Diaz says, expanding the program. She's got a waiting list of students in kindergarten, even right now, that can expand that program. And if we have to look at another site as a possibility, you know, we don't have to make it a charter school anymore. You know, I mean, I think it could be expanded into an elementary school, because then it's a true authentic program that would go K through 12. I would say that. I would say the other would be, and we're doing this right now. We're trying to do a lot of PR, going down to CCLA. Again, great conversations with some of the parents that go to Directora's coffee with the principal. But the parents that are there are predominantly elementary school parents. Not very many middle school parents are at those. So we're not able to get the word too much out. But we were, like Directora said, we went to the back to school night, had a couple tables there, had some teachers there. You know, our teachers are very passionate also of making sure that we have that pathway for our students as well. And then again, the policy of transfers. We got to work on that. That's, like I said, I mean, this is just a small piece of the students that are leaving. It's the students that end up going to another school because of the charter that then in turn go with their feeder pattern to that specific high school that goes there. And I don't know if anybody else would like to share anything else.
I was not here either when this was developed. However, from what I have read and what I understand is when the advocacy happened for CCLA to be at the Cook campus, there were some agreements that were made in that process with the individuals involved, and a verbal commitment that by doing so, that LC would then be the pathway for our students. And what we're seeing is that that is not happening. And so I think we need to, you know, look at that. I think we also need to look at our policy, and we've been talking about this as a team. I think the first step is holding true to the, if you didn't meet the deadline, you know, it's a no unless there are some sibling cases, things like that, the things that we can do. Also, you know, we're kind of beyond the choice schools process and former hindrances by the state. So I think it's time for us to look at our policy and look at how we hold with our homeschool numbers, and also supporting our schools in all of our areas at the same time.
I just want to add, I was here when we were going through this process, and you know, there were folks, there was a lot of support from the school community that really directed, pushed us, guided us to the decision that we made, and now we're committed to this. I don't know, I think, Gabe, you were using the term street data. You know, I don't know how we can pulse check that street data right now, but this is our investment. This is impressive, the work that you do, and I don't want to jump in, but I would like to find a way to hold some of, you know, these folks, you know, to their word, to their commitment, and and supporting them and bringing them in and keeping them engaged. That's.
Can I just add a couple things? So looking at the numbers, right? So when I look at our school or CCLA, you know, the dual track, right? We have our neighborhood kids, and then you have the dual language. And by the capacity, and now that we're looking at the facilities master plan, and when we're looking at that, I think it's a great opportunity to look at can we increase? Because our kiddos that are neighborhood kids that go to CCLA, very low numbers go to other places. Because I think Ms. Raffo said 15% of our neighborhood kids that were at CCLA. So that means that, I can't do math, 85% of our students that were at CCLA from our neighborhood schools ended up at LC. It's our dual language immersion kids out of the 30 that only 6 were there, right? And so to be able to increase our dual language immersion program at LC, because I think that, we've done a pretty good job of showcasing what LC has to offer to our neighborhood kids. It's increasing that we can't expect, because I'm a parent as well, right? And I see the parent side is that out of 60, let's say there's some attrition and let's say only, 54 kids or 50 kids graduate through the dual language immersion track from CCLA. That's still not a big enough number to be able to hold a dual language immersion track at the high school level. I mean, the numbers just don't add up. So either we're going to start creating a bubble to increase the dual language immersion track, and where, that's a whole different discussion, because CCLA right now can only house so many students by the buildings. And that's why I mentioned the facilities master plan. So we have to be strategic as we're talking about facilities and we're talking about expansion, really looking at what does that mean long-term, right? And so just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Director Flores. Did you have more questions?
You answered those were my follow-up questions, right? You had to do it. Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. And then lastly, what is do we have a 9th grade cohort class right now at CCLA in the dual immersion program? Because we started that last year, right?
You want?
Yeah, so we do have a group, we do have 6 kids who came over. So those students are taking world history in Spanish. They're taking a Spanish for Spanish speakers course, which was determined based on their level of Spanish acquisition. They're either in Spanish for Spanish speakers 1 or 2. And then we also have a PE course, PE 1, which is a graduation requirement. That's also being taught in Spanish for them. And we've included our newcomer students in those courses because I'm not going to open a class for 6 kids.
Right, that was my next question, because we talked about a 7th period day, right, last year about in order to accommodate for this program, right? And did that happen?
So we do have a 7-period schedule, and those 6 students are in that dual immersion track.
Okay, so you have those 6 kids plus our newcomers are part of that. Yeah, okay, so, okay, thank you.
Thank you. More questions on this side? Yeah, Director Rao.
I just had a few questions. You mentioned student feedback, like for improving the A through G course proposals. How did you get that feedback from students? Was it a survey or was it just talking to them? And how did it influence your A through G courses?
Yes, great question. So last year we had a design team that consisted of CCLA and LCL high school students, as well as staff from both CCLA and LCL high school and other folks. And it ultimately influenced what we were offering and the types of experiences that we were going to provide in those courses, and the need to redesign some of our existing courses to meet what our kids were telling us that they were missing. And so that relevancy, that meaningful learning experiences, that applied learning, they want to do internships, they want to do job shadows, all those different types of things. And so as we're redesigning courses and planning for new courses, we're always looking for student feedback in that process, as well as other stakeholders like industry partners, for example.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question was about the dual enrollment. It sounded like it was a new thing, and I was just wondering if you were going to offer any workshops or anybody to help the students understand how to register and how dual enrollment works. I know that there's a lot of paperwork with it and it can be kind of confusing. So just trying to make sure that like students understand that.
Another great question. I'm glad you're on the board. Yes, so dual enrollment is new as far as college and career access pathways grant. What's interesting about that is through that type of agreement, you have those college courses on the school site at the high school, and they're limited only to high school students. And so other community members can't enroll in that course. And that's an agreement that you have with the SRJC is what we're looking to develop and explore developing. Definitely education for students and parents. We're fortunate enough that the board, several years ago approved college and career centers on each of our comprehensive school sites as well as our continuation high school. And so we do have dedicated staff already that can support our students through that process. And then our CTE TOSA this past summer actually was able to support students in enrolling in a JC course through another partnership that we had for students in agriculture to do internships during the summer. And so that she also was able to help them with that process. So definitely a need. And as we look at expanding, that will definitely have to ramp up and we'll have to look at systems and structures to support that.
Thank you. I'm super excited that dual enrollment is becoming a thing at this high school because I've taken a few JC classes and I think that they're really fun and a really great way for students who have specific interests that maybe aren't offered at high school classes can like pursue that. So I'm really excited.
Thank you, Director Rao. This way, Director Sheffield, do you have any questions?
I don't, I think I was really going along the same lines as ever. I just did want to add, and I know, Debbie, we had the conversation last summer, but you know, health systems are really, really, if I can leave you with one really hot tip, you know, is health systems are interested in expanding their workforce. So meeting the needs, the needs. So they're there. Conversations are already happening, I'm aware.
Director De La Cruz, and then we'll go back to Director Flores.
Thank you so much for a beautiful presentation. And Director Salonato, what you said reminded me of something that Cesar Chavez said, which is that to preserve one's culture does not require contempt for somebody else's culture. And I just love that this, you know, asset frame is really what is, I don't know, embracing all of this beautiful work before us. So a couple of questions. I know we have a couple of years of graduates from the dual immersion program at the CCLA who didn't get a chance to kind of go into LC. Are we looking to pull any of those kids back into this program?
I took the opportunity to pull a couple of our current 10th graders in to the world history class. Normally, 9th graders don't take world history. So by adding that class to the dual immersion pathway, we accelerated high school a little bit for the current
Great.
9th graders, which I thought would, as we build the dual enrollment down the road, that would offer them opportunities to be able to take advantage of that dual enrollment because they'd be a year ahead in their social science.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm wondering, is there any way of kind of letting CCLA dual immersion grads who decided to go to a different school than LC, is there a way of pulling them in and saying like, this is an opportunity for you to continue that pathway in a school? So I understand we're not trying to necessarily compete, but there is something special happening here for kids who really are dedicated and for families who dedicated that time to, you know, that pathway. And so kind of like figuring out how to continue to put them on that, you know, camino, just feels like, you know, another way of attracting interest. The other question that I had is, what are the kind of plans to expand the dual immersion classes beyond PE, history, and Spanish for Spanish speakers?
Well, our hope is as we work on getting the appropriate credential for our staff. As of right now, we've had some commitment from some of our staff members right now. I think, for example, in music, that are eagerly hoping to get the appropriate credential. I think the Office of Multilingual Services would pay for that to happen. But it is kind of just checking in with our staff to see if they're about, you know, how we can support them on that. We've passed the information out to them. And we've gotten some great responses. So I don't think there's anybody that said no, but it's just connected them with our multilingual services to be able to do that. So yeah, my hope is to have every department have at least one class minimum that is going to be dual language.
I think I really see the importance of having that kind of, full range of offerings, right? To really kind of make the point that this is an entire pathway of your entire educational experience and not just, Spanish or PE. World history, I think, is a great, to your point, Director Raffo, AP Raffo, to really get folks to see this is also about academic excellence, right? This is also about kind of pushing you into these really cool spaces that otherwise you wouldn't have an opportunity to do, but for this beautiful asset that you've spent time developing. Director Zalanardo, I think I interrupted you.
You did not at all, but thank you for noticing. I just wanted to add the bilingual residency work as an investment in a collaboration with Sonoma State University for the near term and the long term. And the belief that we need to mentor teachers so we know them, build relationships with them, but also cultivate the ability for them to have multiple different disciplines they represent and the linguistic skills to work in our schools and serve our students and families.
And if I may,
Mhm.
I just had a couple of things I wanted to add. So the credentialing is an issue. Mr. Albavera and I have spoken with, was it the principal at Anaheim High School? So we've actually had, because of the conferences we've gone to, we've spoken to other principals. Anaheim High School sticks out because they've had a dual immersion program there for a while. And a lot of high schools struggle to have content, core content area as part of their dual immersion. Oftentimes they look at electives because it does depend on teachers, getting credentialed. So that is an area we're looking at. But I also want to mention too that we want to make sure that we're taking care of our teachers as well.
That's right.
And so I'd like to be able to continue in social studies and open up US history next year. But with one teacher in the department, ultimately in the end of 3 years, that means that she's teaching 3 different courses, which gives her 3 different preps along with her English only courses. And we don't want to burn teachers out too. So I think this residency program is going to become key for us to potentially offer as many sections and many courses as we possibly can. But I think some of that's up in the air just because we do want to keep an eye on our teachers. We want to make sure that we're taking care of them
Thank you
as well.
so much for that point. And that kind of leads to my question. What are the kinds of incentives that are in place for teachers to attract them into this path? A new certification program that would be paid for by our district sounds excellent. Are there other ways to, really, again, value the asset that a bilingual teacher who's doing a dual immersion track is able to receive as a result of some of those additional skill sets?
I'm glad you asked that. Again, going to a few conferences, couple districts up north, and I don't know why Washington and Oregon are much more advanced than we are. They offer stipends, just like the bilingual stipend. They offer stipends for those individuals that are at a site that is a dual language site. So that could be something as an incentive, not only obviously for local educators, but other educators coming from different parts of the state. That would be an incentive. And listen, again, like I said, 14 staff members that are not only bilingual, but bicultural. It is that model, that role model that we need for our students of color. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of that. And it does play in the connections that they make with their students to be. So if we're going to look at an education pathway, what better way that you have Mr. Rivera as your math teacher right there, Mr. Nava, your music teacher right there, Maestra Ramirez, your VAPA teacher right there, and we can definitely not only be the role models, but also the mentors of these young folks that are going to be going into the education system.
I think I have 2 more questions and that's it. So I loved your example around, the French-speaking Haitian kids learning how to speak in Spanish and Spanish kids learning how to speak in French. And so this leads me to, I'm going to just keep talking about this, right? How are we creating dual immersion pathways for French and Spanish? We have beautiful programs and creating so much more of like a broader sense of this is a multilingual international school that will prepare you to be in the world. Is there any, I mean, I understand the facilities challenges, right? But what does it look like to, really continue that conversation with the French American Charter, to uplift, the value that Santa Rosa City Schools sees in multiple languages being taught and learned in our district?
I'll just say that with that, the importance of the recruitment of teachers that are currently or students locally at Sonoma State through the bilingual teacher residency program, not only for Spanish speakers, but also for teachers who speak French and hopefully in the near future, other languages. So we do have models. Anaheim is one that has a number of different dual language pathway, different languages. It's just at the core of this is the intentionality of like what we've been talking about, like our education pathway, so that we we grow our own and they know, they understand the importance, they see it and they go to the university and then come back. So a lot of work is around really looking at what is already happening around us. And then how are we really looking at maximizing the resources like this bilingual teacher residency grant to be able to ensure that we're getting these teachers, we're identifying them and they're working at our sites. Currently it's at CCLA, but the conversation is if there is no position at CCLA to ensure that they are at any of our other elementaries or at, when we have the single subject residents that they are at high schools.
Thank you. The last thing that I just wanted to lift up with a lot of love and light on it is the amazing connectivity between the music programs at the middle school level and at the high school level. The color guard, please don't steal anybody from Santa Rosa High School's band. But it's super exciting, right? I can see kids being so fired up to do something that really doesn't exist in any other campus. In our district, a lot of kids are super excited about marching band. It's been a long time since we've had anything like that. And so I just feel like that's a huge attractor, and whatever you need from this board, and we're hearing you on the policies. But I think, thinking about just those bridges that you're building are so gorgeous, and really, really grateful to you.
Can I
Vanessa?
add one thing about supporting multilingual experiences and languages? And one of the things that I'm hearing a lot from some of our teachers who are not bilingual, they would like to become bilingual. And how do we support those teachers as well? Because we have some amazing teachers and they're trying to figure out like, okay, can I get Rosetta Stone or can I get what's Babbel or what's that commercial? So how do we as a district also support those teachers that we already have who are not bilingual to become bilingual? Because there is a want there as well.
Yes, I love that. I also just want to tons of porras to all of the work at the college and career centers at Santa Rosa High also are now teaching parents, right? Their ESL classes for parents. I can't imagine a more beautiful way to really kind of continue developing mastery over multiple languages and including our larger community and recognizing that we have students of all ages that we serve, and leaning into that just is really beautiful. The last question that I had is there any connectivity that you all are seeing with increased sense of belonging and lower incidence of violence? Is there any way of tracking kind of data or understanding the impacts of, this increased sense of belonging for our students in these programs that really love on the fact that they are multilingual?
We haven't tracked data as connections. I mean, obviously at the beginning of the year, we took the first few days to build relationships with our students and our staff. And actually just today, Mr. Cunningham and I were in our office and Mr. Petty came in and said that he hears all this stuff that's going on at other places, and yet our kids have been respectful and we've had some issues for sure, but not to the level that we've had in the past few years. Knock on wood, we've been lucky. And I think a lot of it has to do, again, with the connections that our teachers are making with our students. That cannot go undervalued in any way, shape, or form. And the other part of that too is an administrative team. Our students that have the most challenges, we meet with them almost daily by the bathrooms and escorting them to class and talking to them and what are you gonna do and let's come on, let's. And so, and not only that, we have meetings with their parents. Their parents know that they're not alone, that we are working with them. And really overall, I mean, I think as a team, not only as an admin team, but as a team as a whole LCL, and we emphasize how much we care about our students. And that I think our students are feeling it, And so again, it goes back to what we talked about student voice, giving them the opportunity to express themselves, the things that they need, things that they want. We are there for them. And so, yeah, I don't have any statistical data. I mean, yeah, some suspensions are down, like I said, but there's some issues. But more importantly, the campus feels calm. And so we're very lucky that our students feel connected at this point in time of the year.
De corazón. Gracias.
Gracias.
Any more questions on this side? Vice President Medina.
Hold on, I got a lot.
Not surprised.
First off, you mentioned Mr. Petty, and I just gotta say that that rugby program is amazing and has a powerful impact on those students participating there at LC Allen. I did want to ask, y'all still teach French at LC?
No, unfortunately, our last French teacher had passed away a few years back. We've been trying to find a teacher, but that's still in the works.
That's where I got my French passion there.
Listen, trying to have me talk French to our Haitian students, it's entertaining, but I do a good job.
Je peux parler avec toi.
Moi aussi.
I did want to ask, I think there's math and Spanish at CCLA, right? Do we know when, will that come to LC? So when? Go ahead.
So that all depends on math teachers getting a B-clad. And so again, that goes back to credentialing. We have 2 math teachers in the department who are bilingual, and one who's semi-bilingual, I think we could say. But when they get a bilingual credential, then and if they're interested in teaching a course in Spanish, then we'll be able to open that.
I think one thing that arose for me in just seeing kind of where we are at, I don't feel like we're far enough. And I'm wondering if that impacted many people not going to LC Allen, because I know, like you said, staff told us this was going to happen. And, I wanted to have that affirmative thinking that it would, but I also have to take, my words back and say, yeah, you were right. But do you think part of it is that we weren't ready? I think another commitment that I remember is that there was going to be a lot of outreach in the community to really have people go to CCLA. And I'm wondering, is that a part of it? And not just CCLA, but then transition to LC. Is that part of maybe what we're experiencing, insufficient outreach, or?
I would say a little bit of everything. I mean, I would say at that time, we as a site didn't do enough outreach down to CCLA. Now it's different because Directora Diaz and I almost communicate definitely every week. We have a good relationship. I think the other thing is that we are still trying to get rid of that stigma that LC has. Let's be realistic. And being on that side of town. And it's unfortunate. But again, similar to when I was at Ridgeway was a certain way for certain kids. We've turned that around and it's been great. And I think that, like they say, right? I mean, you can say 1,000 great things about a school, but you do one bad thing and next thing you know, it sticks with you for a while. So we're changing that. I think our students are feeling that right now. And so it's going to take a little bit of time, but I think we will be able to overcome this.
And just to add to that, we were talking about, we talk to parents a lot and to kids. We're always outside and trying to, so they feel connected to adults and what they're doing. And one of the things that we know, or that I know from talking to our kids at CCLA, is that by the time they hit 7th grade, they already know what high school they're going to go to. They've already been talking to either older friends or older siblings or Their parents have already made up their mind where they're going to go. And even as a parent, I can tell you that by the time my kid was in 7th grade, 8th grade, she knew where she was going to go to high school, right? So we need to start doing this outreach to the younger parents, right? I had a conversation today with a parent who has twin boys. And I was like, hey, where is your daughter who's in 8th grade, who's a CCLA track, right? Dual language immersion track. And she's like, well, I think she's going to go and start mentioning schools. And I said, can I just ask you, why not Elsie? What's your homeschool? And she didn't know what her homeschool was, but I said, why not Elsie? And she's like, well, that's a good question. I don't know. Tell me more. So then we started talking about the things that Elsie offers. And she's like, you know what? I'm so glad you were here at this meeting, right? But I think that's part of what we need to do is making sure that parents from TK start understanding what Elsie has to offer. Because if we're doing the outreach in 7th and 8th, I think by that time it's too late.
Agreed. I think I did want to touch on it was the dual enrollment, and I'm curious on a couple things. First, the courses that are because you said they're being taught at Elsie, right? I'm wondering what types of courses are being taught. And also, I think I heard about issues with the faculty association in terms of teaching courses. Are there issues that exist in terms of what happens in that collaboration or relationship?
So currently, right now, there aren't any dual enrollment courses taught at LC Allen High School. The grant, I think we just got it last month. If I look at my emails when we got our GAN. So that's something we're going to have to discuss. And what's nice is that there is multiple high schools in our county that are focused on dual enrollment and CCAP partnerships with the SRJC. And so I think collectively, we'll start having those conversations and working that out. So, but it's very, very new. We just received the funding, so.
I guess maybe part of my question would then go to, is the idea that it would be kind of like CTE focused courses, or would it be like general ed?
It could be either. Really, we have had a CCAP agreement in the past in Santa Rosa City Schools. It was at another high school in the automotive technology program. What made that agreement a little bit more seamless is that our instructor was also an SRJC instructor. And so it was easy to kind of negotiate that and get that figured out. And so the kids were able to, through that program, take SRJC classes during the school day. So that's one model that we have done in previous years, but we're certainly open to looking at all different types of courses. I don't know if you want to add something.
I just wanted to add that you're asking a valid question about concerns of faculty. All I can say is that in our most recent conversation around the CCAP, and as Debbie mentioned, it's fairly new, the grant awarding. We've heard nothing but kind of like open arms for moving forward with this. And there may have been logistical hurdles in the past that may have stopped us going as far as the JC. The JC has always been a really wonderful partner with Santa Rosa City Schools, but it sounds like the commitment under the leadership there now is a renewed focus in this place as well. And it's also being fueled across the state as kind of a place of interest and focus to grow. So I think that will help kind of mitigate some of those previous challenges.
And then as it relates to that as well, I took many JC classes while in high school. And I also know that one semester course at the JC, basic 3-unit course, is equivalent to a whole year of high school. So what will that look like? In terms of time and the amount of hours expected of homework, those types of things, are there going to be adjustments? Maybe could you elaborate on some of that?
Yeah, I think it depends where our entry points are and what courses that we're going to offer at the JC. For example, work experience. That's not a year-long course, and there's limits on units, and it's a shorter course. And so that might be an opportunity for us to leverage that partnership where we couple that with internship experiences and things like that that we naturally want to embed in CTE. So it really depends on the willingness of SRJC faculty and wanting to work with us, and where we see those entry points falling as we start those discussions.
The next thing I wanted to ask about is the University Center, the program with SSU. I think I hear that it's very underutilized, I would say. And I'm wondering, what are the hurdles in terms of filling all those slots? Are we What outreach are we doing? I think students have to apply when, is it like in incoming freshmen? What are the hurdles that we're facing to, because that's money saved for families getting college credit while they're in high school. Time is money.
Yeah, so I would say there's definitely room in that program. I think that's sort of coupled with our enrollment woes with a lot of our home students attending different middle schools other than CCLA. The program coordinator and I visit all of the middle schools. We bring brochures, we talk to the counselors. We've reached out to middle schools that are not within our district. We did the same thing last year, really trying to encourage applications. So I think, maybe some additional advertising about the program, but we've got just under 100 students in all 4 grades, in the program right now. And it is a really good opportunity for kids to earn college credit and for families to save money. And I don't know how well known it is in the community, but I do think that we can certainly, continue our outreach efforts. But I think, like Mrs. Diaz said, a lot of students, by the time they're in 8th grade, they've already decided well before which high school they're going to. But yeah, we can continue outreach efforts for sure.
I want to add, in addition to the outreach efforts, we've been utilizing grant funds to create marketing materials to really tell the story of LCL in high school in a nice snapshot. And so before the back to school night at CCLA, we had they call it a Z-fold developed, and it really highlighted all the programs very nicely. And we're also working with the CTE Foundation to record student testimonials about their experience at LCL in high school. And so I share that to say that, yes, there is definitely room for growth, for outreach, awareness about the programs beyond just CCLA, but in the larger community as a whole, which I think will help address those very issues that we're seeing.
I think in relation to those marketing materials, I'd highly suggest, if possible, use some of the funds to also market via social media. In terms of the community health program, I did want to ask, I know the Oceana High School Foundation has their support of the SRJC CNA program. Is there any collaboration between those two?
Actually, we just had a conversation about that yesterday with our counseling department. So we're using those, there's 59 students enrolled in that health course right now in 2 sections. And so our College and Career Hub counselor is going into those classes, checking in with the juniors who are in that class, because that's the target audience for that CNA program. So she is checking in with them. Our health center, also the Santa Rosa Community Health, is looking for student feedback on some projects that they're doing. And so I connected them with the instructor for that health course, because I think those are ideal students to give feedback, particularly when it comes to healthcare issues.
And since you brought up the Center of Community Health, I saw today that they have applications open right now for their Future Faces in Family Medicine mentorship program for high school students. Are you working with them?
And they're coming in to do a presentation at lunchtime this week.
Cool. You also brought up tutoring, and I'm wondering if with tutoring comes pay. When I was at Cook and I was a tutor at Cook, I got paid. Any?
Okay, let's do it. Yes, I mean, definitely, as we're developing those programs, incentives are good for kids, and so if there are mechanisms or supports that we can get to help support that, definitely. I think that would further incentivize students in doing that work beyond just, wanting to do it just because there's a passion there. So absolutely.
And if I can add to that, we did meet with Marin Promise, and they are working with San Rafael High, if I'm not mistaken. And part of their work is getting students to do tutoring, but not only do tutoring, but also support the local middle schools and elementary schools, and giving them classified positions. And then also being able to build the possibility of more classified folks. Every, high school, college student needs a little side gig that they can make some money. So they're starting to work on that. We got that idea. Again, it's just an idea for us right now, but we would definitely like to grow our own to be able to support a classified person and then hopefully get them into some sort of university where they can get their teaching credential.
And in addition to add on to that, we recently had a meeting with the SRJC and the Sonoma County Office of Education, and part of their early childhood program is hours with students. And so if we look at how we are connecting and braiding all of our efforts intentionally to where students maybe not only could get paid, but also could earn credits and stackable credentials while in high school, that's also another incentive that we could build into the program.
I think one of the other things that I wanted to bring up as it relates to CCLA versus LCN, I think is parent engagement. I think at CCLA, don't you have like hours that you're required to volunteer because it's a charter, but we can't do that at LC. And in terms of parental engagement, do we see it kind of drop down as we move to LC? Is there more that we need that we can do? How's that going?
I think I'll speak to that. Just today in our Ed Services team leader meeting, we were definitely discussing this and the collaborations and just the connections that we have with Santa Rosa JC and the adult school and their interest in really increasing classes at our site. So that definitely is something that we are looking at because we understand that if we provide those opportunities to our families, they'll have the opportunity to then be able to support their students at home. So we're definitely looking at sites that Santa Rosa JC says that they've seen a lot of parent interest, and then working to collaborate to ensure that there's classes that are being offered at those sites after school in the evenings for our families.
And going back to the language, I'm wondering, are we looking at the possibility of like students that are getting all this language experience, potentially getting certificated in translation and things coming out of high school? Like what kind of programs exist that they could already come out of high school and potentially get paid for translating? There's a need out there.
And I'll speak on that today that we had through back to school night, and Director De La Cruz mentioned it, what's happening at Santa Rosa Middle School. And there are courses in the UC doorways that are in translation. And so just today with our secondary EL specialists, we were having this conversation, especially with Annie Scully, who really wants to spearhead and look at what other courses we were looking at, what are the courses that are being offered through what department, because we are interested exactly in this on being able to provide students the opportunity to take a course that then they can be able to use not only within our schools, but also skills for them to obtain as they're moving forward. So it's just interesting that you have these questions because those were two topics that we discussed today that we are definitely interested and determined to make sure that we see how they can come to our district.
I guess I'll just kind of end with the wait list. There's a huge wait list, meaning to me, there's a huge demand for dual immersion. And I know it's something I want to see throughout. And I don't know what it means in the big picture, but I'd love to see it in our entire district. Basically, most of the workshops that I'm attending this weekend are all about that. But I do wonder in the context of CCLA, like if we move to dual immersion at all our public schools, does that mean we should move away from CCLA as a charter? It's just a question that I think needs to be asked as we have that discussion and we look into that into the future. I love CCLA, but I think it's a question that we need to address and look into. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you for the presentation and hopefully get more students.
Thank you, Vice President Medina. I had a lot of questions, but a lot of them were already asked. So I just have one question. The advisory committees that you mentioned in the presentation, who can be a part of those? And if that's open to community members and experts in these fields, how can folks get involved?
I'll speak specifically to CTE Advisory Committee. So if there is anybody interested listening right now, they can reach out to me and I could definitely connect them, not only with LCL High School, but we have a lot of CTE programs throughout our district. And we're always looking for folks to in the community to serve and help inform our programs to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our county and really preparing students for those high wage, high need, high demand jobs. Yeah, so please reach out to me, Debbie Cardozo, CT Director. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
with regards to the dual immersion advisory, I would also say anyone interested, Eduviges Llamas, Multilingual Services Director, will definitely jot the names down and then be in communication with them.
Thank you. Well, thank you. So before
I have one last
one more, oh, yes, one more question.
And a lot of them have been asked, actually. Thank you, all of you. One last question. As an English language learner myself, I came here as a teenager. What are we doing with, in terms of, measuring and language acquisition for our English language learners who are in the dual immersion program, right? So these are high school students who are coming into this program, right? So how are we making sure that their English language acquisition is up to par? So maybe you don't have the answer to that, but I mean, that's something I'm interested to make sure that we measure to make sure that they, they are also fully bilingual by the time they graduate high school. So food for thought. Oh, and also regarding the dual enrollment, one idea that some high schools have done, one is, making sure that we don't supplant, our, class of certificated staff, right? And two, since we had a disagreement of the 7th period day, something that we're doing up north is having a 7th period, ASL class, right? In lieu of that 7th period. Something that we could potentially think with SRJC in terms of, dual enrollment courses in the near future. So just FYI. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Flores. So we will now move on to public comment, but I have no blue cards for this item. So this comes back to the board for any further discussion or questions. Yeah.
I just want to add that two things. One, just to reinforce on the DLI or the dual language immersion piece of the program, I just want to reinforce what was being shared, that for teachers who teach in this program, they have to have 2 credentials. They have to have their single subject credential and they have to have the BCLAD, and they have to be bilingual. So there are multi-factors here that are giving us some pause to think about how we grow individuals. So that's also going to consider our recruitment, right, as we grow positions as well. And then we already offer a stipend. We offer a $1,200 BCLAD stipend currently. So if that's something we can add to the narrative to encourage people, we already offer it.
Thank you.
Oh, one more thing. Based on the location of CCLA, the only way that we can maintain the elementary grades is if it's a charter. And that is because CCLA is not in our elementary boundaries.
Thank you for that reminder. Director Medina?
I think it's more a question for you, Superintendent Turnell. I think, is there a plan or what's the process that we as a board have to go through to begin the discussion to really implement dual immersion at our other elementaries?
I think that is a matter of working with the team on the probability, because to grow that means we have to do exactly what we're doing here. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think it's a beautiful idea for us to consider, but we have to grow the number of people who have those multiple credentials, no matter if they're in elementary or secondary. So we just need to, there is no current plan for that, but based on the discussion tonight, we can definitely go back and talk about the probabilities on doing something like that. And also the languages that would be involved, not assuming that it would all be Spanish.
Oh, yeah. I was also going to ask, what can we do to start to do to, if we're planting that seed, to start doing those things, whether it be with SSU, or what is it, the North Coast School, to start getting that pathway of people that are getting those credentials that need. I think anything we can do to get that moving, I know I would appreciate, but I think the demand is there.
I think the interest is there too.
I'm just sad that at least, going to speak to them with the residency program, I think we're on our way. I mean, I know that my goal is to keep all my teachers. And then we do have right now 4 resident teachers who we're hoping to keep, right? So they're going to be B-clatted, multiple subject. And so at least in the elementary, and hopefully we can increase that in the middle school and high schools, to continue that conversation with a residency program with Sonoma State, because it is an asset regardless of how fast we increase if we increase our dual language immersion program to have teachers who are bilingual at different sites.
But I think I also say the challenge isn't just getting them trained, but then getting them to stay here because the demand is everywhere.
And I'll just add that is like any training that you offer staff, it's an investment. And if we were to go so far as to pay for credentialing, it does not guarantee that they'll stay with us, right? We can have contracts and other things, but at the end of the day, they could technically, on the way that we've invested, go elsewhere at the same time.
Like I know the county, when I was there, they have a program where they'll help you go through the MSW program, I think through Berkeley or somewhere, but then you're required to work like 1 or 2 years with like CPS and stuff. So maybe looking at something like that.
We can look into grant funds as well. That would also be a carrot for how we build the program, with some opportunities to guarantee a certain number of years of employment with, the benefits of the stipend, et cetera.
I just wanted to mention the bilingual teacher residency program. When they participate in that, they are signing on to work in our district for 4 years. Now, those are conversations, so that is part of the intentionality behind this grant. If they are part of this residency, then their agreement is a minimum of 4 years working in our district.
And if I could add, just anecdotally, talking to staff that we've interviewed, they appreciate that we are valuing the Spanish language. They don't get that in other school districts, right? So I think that is another incentive, another piece of the puzzle to attract teachers, especially bilingual, bicultural teachers. They don't know really a lot about that, especially when they got the single subject that they need to be class. So we have to inform them of that. But when we definitely, like the experience that I've had with Erica and talking to our teachers, and we say, would you be interested? Absolutely, they say. So that investment in them, of course, we're going to hope that they stay with us. We don't have no guarantees, but I think they appreciate the fact that their Spanish language is being also honored the same way that our students do.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
So maybe that's why it started over, saying speed it up. I am just sitting here trying not to get emotional, because coming into this role as superintendent, seeing the productive struggle that it has taken beyond years to get here, the visits to other locations, the ability to understand, the dream team to put it together, the ability and willingness of our staff to jump on board, that has taken all of you and your efforts and your passion and your love for students and for dual multi languages, and seeing that as being a definite benefit to connect to humanity. And I just want to lift this team and recognize, as I was reflecting on 2 years ago when we were trying to bring information forward, and just the growth that you have assisted in making this possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your beautiful work. And we can't wait to see all that comes after this. And aquí estamos para servirles. So whatever we can do to support this and support your work, please count on us.
Gracias.
Thank you. Item E3 this evening, public hearing regarding sufficiency of textbooks or instructional materials for 2023-24 grades K through 6. Staff is presenting for public hearing a resolution for textbooks or instructional material sufficiency. The Williams versus State of California settlement requires that the public hearing and certification of textbooks or instructional materials occur within the first 8 weeks of the school year. And I will hand this over to Dr. Castro.
Thank you, President Manieri, Superintendent Trinnell, members of the board, and student, staff, and community of Santa Rosa City Schools. Education Code 60119 requires school districts governing boards to hold a public hearing and determine by resolution that each pupil, including English learners, has sufficient textbooks or instructional materials or both that are aligned to the academic content standards and consistent with the content and cycles of the curriculum frameworks adopted by the State Board of Education in the following subjects: English language arts, including English language development, history, social science, mathematics, and science. We have this for K6 and 712. We have 2 public hearing items and 2 actions for the sufficiency of textbooks and instructional materials. This is the first one for the public hearing.
Thank you. At this time, we will open public hearing on item E3 regarding sufficiency of textbooks or instructional materials for 2023-24 grades K through 6. Is there any public comment this evening for this public hearing? Seeing none, we will close this public hearing and move on to item E4. Our action item on sufficiency of textbooks or instructional materials for 2023-24 grades K through 6. Dr. Castro, anything to add on this item?
Just that the board consider the approval of resolution number 2023-20-24-10 for textbooks and or instructional material sufficiency.
Thank you, board. This is an action item, so we are looking for a motion or any questions or discussion to be had. Director De La Cruz.
I got a question from a constituent around the process to add new textbooks or new things to our curriculum. And when that comes to the board, there was an interest specifically to stop teaching To Kill a Mockingbird and to bring in new voices, something new. And so so they were like, what is this thing? And when can we actually hear about other cool novels that are being included into our textbook list? So I just wanted to ask the question because I thought it was a good one from constituents who were trying to figure out like, well, what is this thing versus like, yeah.
So I'm going to actually, first, good evening, board, good evening, Superintendent Chanel. I'm going to first answer it in 2 folds because first I'm going to answer it TK through 6. So for the TK through 6, we do an adoption. So that looks a little different than I think what you're asking for the middle and high schools. So for example, currently right now, we're looking at foundational skills programs for our elementary to actually to explicitly teach reading. So with that, we have a team of teachers representative from each site piloting 3 different curriculums, not all at the same time, but the 3 throughout the year. And then it'll be presented at each of our grade level releases. It'll also be presented at staff meetings and then discussed. We then do a recommendation. We will then ask staff what their feelings are, and then we go with we vote. We hold it. You have to make sure that public get to see it too before you adopt. And then that's the process for, I would say, the curriculum for TK through 6. As far as English books is what you're asking for 7 or 712. So that's been an interesting process. And we are really actually, Steve Irving, our district librarian, is pulling a lot of data about that. And it's often a steering committee, and it could be math, it could be for books. What they do is they actually read the book, they ask, okay, I would like to offer this book. And then they have the steering committee, like I'm gonna say like Montgomery wants to add a book to their list. They then have the principal sign off on it. They then go to the steering committee and then go to the English steering committee. Each member of the steering committee would then have to sign off on the book too, and then they would go and purchase it.
So the question that I have is around, like, when does the public get involved or to provide
So that is when we're doing
recommendations
a
or?
full, that is when we're doing a full adoption of a whole curriculum. So 2 years ago, we adopted the CCD units. And so that is when they're on public display. And so it's a full adoption. In the past, in the olden days, there used to be always adoption cycles. And so we are actually pulling all that information. Steve is putting together a spreadsheet of everything that's been adopted and when, to really look at that. So then we are going to look at how we need to move forward, what is really, I would say, urgent. And now with the new math framework, we know that publishers are going to be publishing and, to adopt, to align to the new math framework. And we as a team, we're discussing that today and then figuring out actually a board policy around that.
Great, thank you. So with that.
I just want to add to that, actually, as a natural part of the development of the ethnic studies program, there have been a number of additions to the texts that are used in the classroom that would then naturally move away from what's considered the European canon. I also want to add that I've noticed that coming out of the shelter in place and the pandemic, a lot of the systems and structures that we normally followed may have gotten a little, So I've asked for a full revisit to the protocol and the cadence and the cycles of adoption of curriculum and textbooks. We'll be going through that this year as well. Yes.
So I have two questions. The first is just clarifying. So for an English department to adopt a novel, you're saying that's only approved at the site level, that never comes to the district?
It does go through all of the steering committee chairs throughout the district. So, and the novel is not something that is district-wide, and that is why I believe it's been done. And once again, as Dr. Castro said, we're really looking at that.
And then I'm wondering if we have any kinds of protections for teachers when they are adopting new novels, if there are parents who are opposed to those novels, how do we handle that? How do we protect our teachers from complaints?
That's a really great question. And I could answer it first from the principal point of view. And that would be really going and talking, that is part of the principal's job, is really to make sure they're supporting their teachers. It was chosen for a reason and a purpose, right? And so making sure that is known, and then also our support as well.
Director Medina, any questions on this item?
How do you know? No, on the complaints, I thought I just saw something that the governor asked about complaints and like complaints going to the state. And do you know about that? Could you elaborate?
I don't know the exact title of the bill, but he is, Newsom has just put into place a, I don't know.
Legislation on book bans.
No, I'm just going to say anti-book
Yeah,
ban. That's what I was going to say, but yeah.
So with that, I'd like to move to approve.
I think we have if it's okay, we have a couple of questions on this side. Director Flores.
Yes, thank you. In the attachment, we see visit of the finding summary. We have the different schools that were visited by SCO, right? And then it says material sufficiency is sufficient. The next to that column, it says school facilities overall rating, right? Could you elaborate about what these ratings mean? And who visited, right? And what those reported fit means in terms of facilities, because we've heard over and over here, not only from teachers, but our own students, talk about, problems with our facilities. So could you elaborate a little bit with what this means?
Before Lisa does that, or Miss August does that, I just want to clarify, just so that the board isn't wondering, for tonight, by law, we do need to bring this forward to the board for potential approval by the 8th week of the school year. And that does require the board to focus on the instructional materials part of the report. The report that we receive encompasses the full sort of package of what Williams requires. And so while you see the report that includes the facilities aspect, tonight you are actually being asked to approve the instructional material sufficiency, which is not covered by the facility side. Lisa.
Thank you. Yes, so, sorry, Clerk Flores. Great question about the FIT is the Facilities Inspection Tool. It's actually a document that you can find on the CDE's website that essentially they go site by site, room by room, and check off based on a rubric. And then those rubrics, it gets added, the different ratings get added up and it's a percentage. So I know there's a specific question about, some of our school sites and why they were, say, marked good when they're not necessarily in tip-top repair. It's a difference between safety and aesthetics. Sometimes it's about cleanliness. It could be any number of things, but it's the overall rating. So we do have one school when we get to the high school, to the secondary, that it was rated good rather than fair by 0.8%. And that is just the way that based on the number of check marks in each category. So again, it's the facilities inspection tool. It's required to be done at least once a year. SCO comes around and they review some of our sites and compare those to the FIT, to the facility inspection tool. And that's where they're getting that information. We did make a move this year from having an outside agency that's come and done it for us for about 14 years at a pretty substantial cost. We did move that to in-house to our facility, our maintenance department, with specific training to be able to go through and recognize and really look at it with a critical eye, and then utilize that towards developing our deferred maintenance plan. So looking at taking more ownership of that rather than having a third party that's kind of just always come along from outside of the area. So you will notice a couple changes in dates, some differences in the dates on there. That has to do with, it was included like the 12/31/22, or not 31/12 of 22. That was from that FIT inspection from the outside company, which was included in last year's SARC. So the school accountability report card is actually where you as a board will see the FIT information reflected to you. This is just SCO's kind of check as the county office for what they're required to do for oversight.
And lastly, it says fair for LC Allen. Does that mean there are any sort of safety issues that we need to be worried about?
It doesn't necessarily mean safety. It could be, I know that we had issues with the bathrooms, which obviously we just addressed some of those. So without looking at the particular report, I couldn't answer that off the top of my head. But I can definitely take a look at that and get that information to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any last questions? Okay, we are seeking a motion on this item.
Move to approve the sufficiency findings.
Second.
That was moved by Director De La Cruz and seconded by Director De La Torre. Roll call vote, please.
Director Rao.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director De La Torre.
Aye.
Director Sheffield.
Aye.
Director McNally.
Aye.
Director Flores.
Aye.
Director Medina.
Aye.
President Manieri.
Aye. Thank you. Item E5, public hearing regarding sufficiency of textbooks or instructional materials for 2023-24 grades 7 through 12. Staff is presenting for public hearing a resolution for textbooks or instructional material sufficiency. And again, I will hand it over to Dr. Castro.
Thank you, President Manieri, Superintendent Tranel, members of the board, and the student, staff, and community of Santa Rosa City Schools. Please bear with me as I read this into the record. Education Code 60119 requires school district governing boards to hold a public hearing and determine by resolution that each pupil, including English learners, has sufficient textbooks or instructional materials, or both, that are aligned to the academic content standards and consistent with the content and cycles of the curriculum frameworks adopted by the State Board of Education in the following subjects: English language arts, including English language development, world language, health, history, social science, mathematics, and science. The Education Code also requires the Board of Education to determine the availability of laboratory science equipment as applicable to science laboratory courses offered in grades 9 to 12 inclusive.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. At this time, we will open public hearing on this item. Are there any members of the public who would like to give public comment on this public hearing? Seeing none, we will close the public the public hearing, and move on to the next item, E6, an action item for sufficiency of textbooks or instructional materials for 2023-24, grade 7 through 12. Are there any board member questions? Seeing none, we are seeking a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 2023-2411 for textbooks and or instructional material sufficiency.
Second.
Thank you. That was moved by Director Sheffield and seconded by Director Flores. Roll call vote, please.
Director Rao,
Aye.
Director Sheffield,
Aye.
Director Flores,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director McNally,
Aye.
Director Medina,
Aye.
Director De La Torre,
Aye.
President Manieri.
Aye. Thank you, Dr. Castro and
Thank you.
team. Item E7 this evening is an action item, approval of district and school site safety plans. The board will consider approval of elementary, middle, high school, and district comprehensive school safety plans for the 2023-2024 school year. And presenting this action item are Dr. Vicky Zantz and Patty Turner.
Good evening. Vicky's not in the
Yes,
house,
I'm
so I
here.
will present.
I'm here.
Oh, what's up? Hi,
Few
Vicky.
buttons I kind of missed, but I'm here, President Manieri, Superintendent Turnell, members of the board, and members of the Santa Rosa City Schools community. Tonight, we are here to present to you the school safety plans and site safety plans for the district buildings as well. And to present these items to you, I'd like to introduce Patty Turner and John Jones.
Good evening, President Manieri, members of the board, and our Superintendent Turnell. We are pleased to present to you our schools comprehension school safety plans for the 2023-24 school year for your approval. Just a reminder that these plans are a living document. They are modified as laws change and concerns arise on our campuses to meet the needs of both our students and staff and all that involves safety. And any comment? No?
I think Ms. Turner is being very humble. The process, perhaps you can unfold for the board, including our partnership with our emergency services.
Certainly. We have switched our timelines from a couple years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, where the plans were approved almost close to the end of the year, sadly. And within the last year and a half, we were able to bring it into a timeline that made more sense. Plans are, like I said, modified as needed, and they are approved during the spring within their safety teams, each of the campuses, and presented to their school site council and or safety team to approve. If the school site council decides that they would like to go ahead and allow the safety team to be that entity, then it is the safety team that approves for the school. During the summer, all of these plans are presented to our fire chief and our Santa Rosa Police. And depending on who's dedicated to do that responsibility, they review the plans, all 23 of them, and then bring them back to me and say, you got the thumbs up. And then during the beginning of the school, the only piece that gets reviewed and or revised according to the staff turnover, is their incident command system staff chart. They fill in the blanks for those who have left or the new staff that have come into the school. And that is presented during the very beginning of the school year at the majority of the time, their very first staff meeting. Sometimes a couple of weeks later, depending on the agenda and how large it is. After that, then it is brought to me and I'm able to package the plans and then bring them to you. The wonderful piece is that we are constantly having communication with our partners, our community partners in many areas of, I mentioned beforehand, law changes. One recent one that just came in to take effect July 1st of this year is the parent notice of the safety of firearms storage. And that will be coming out soon as an example of things that come up down the pike to us to be able to put it in place in our plans. Otherwise, I believe that is it.
Are there any board member questions? I see Vice President Medina's hand and Director De La Torre is after.
Yeah, I'm just curious, I know that we just moved to the Stony Point site. Is there something specific to that site that's been developed, or is that in development?
So that would go to our district safety plan. And John Jones, who's in his new role, we will be looking at our district safety plan and making adjustments for a new location where we are leasing, right? And don't have full ownership of that entire property. So we also have to work within what the owners expect. So that will be happening, but all rules considered, our safety plan still covers our employees wherever they are.
Thank you.
Other questions, Director De La Torre?
Thank you very much for the exhaustive efforts for these very thorough plans. All plans are great, but follow through and ensuring that these are working is extremely vital. Is that on the sites themselves? What is the accountability and checkup on these type of plans to ensure that they are working, or like you said, it's a living document, things would need to be changed if necessary?
This is a plan and a lot of them look very identical to each other, but many of our sites are asked to present a little bit more detail to some of the emergency procedures because of the differences of campus to campus. And some of those details we don't really want to make public. We're asked by our police officers and fire chiefs not to make public. So some things are not on the document, but the plans for working towards making our schools ultimately the safest it possibly can be is everyone's goal. And if we're missing on some training, we will work on that. We have safety meetings with our administrators, our safety teams. Every month, we have discussions. Some of them are a little bit more active than others, depending on their staff, their desires of their teachers to want to do more, and the flexibility of their time. But since the last 2 years, I've seen a lot more dedication coming from the schools. So I'm really very pleased to share that. The other piece that you will be seeing more of is that we're creating a district behavior assessment discipline team. We are still training ourselves. We went to a training just last week, but we're excited about that effort.
So I'm really interested in checks and balances, and I know it is so hard with such a large district. But we are getting a lot of, obviously, safety is on the top of everybody's minds, including all of our families in this community. So a lot of these questions are continually asked. We don't want site admins inundated with questions. If we can make information readily available and continue to educate our community on what's in place and ensuring they understand the avenues of how to communicate. If we put that all on one site administrator of 1,700 students, and you've got 23 different sites on varying levels. So completely understandable. We don't put all the information out there to keep our students safe, but ensuring we have enough educational information out there to our families so they can understand the process and know how to communicate their concerns so that our administrators, our teachers, our staff can do the work they need to do, not continually try and answer questions that may be readily available with some education.
Thank you.
Great
That's a real
suggestion.
good point, but I also want to be completely honest in the sense that it's not just site administrators that are also getting some of this scrutiny, for lack of a better term. It's also you guys. The board, as you know, of course, you get a lot of things coming your way about security and safety on our school sites. One of the things that we've been involved with pretty much from the get-go is working towards improving our partnerships with the community. That includes first responder personnel, first responder agencies. And one of the things that comes up frequently out of some of these meetings is this term, developing muscle memory in response to emergencies. And that's great coming from people whose job it is to respond to emergencies. But our staff and our personnel, thankfully, we don't engage ourselves in emergency and crisis frequently enough to develop that. So that falls upon an intermediary element that comes through the resources that you're reviewing now. And I have to acknowledge and thank Patty for her very diligent and tireless efforts in providing that for us, not just for accessible resourcing, but also something that moves on the fly, that is a living document to respond to the needs as they come up. You know, certainly not yesterday, but it's moving forward and learning from what we've gained through these experiences and provide better responses moving forward. So thank you, Patty, for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Director Medina?
I think I just kind of want to get a clarity on timelines because this is for the 23-24 school year. And I know in the process, like the date for reviews by March 1st. And so I'm thinking, well, if it's March 1st, that's already the second semester of that academic year. So is this supposed to be a safety plan for the current year or is it for the next year?
This is for the current year. Because the March 1st deadline is the state requirement deadline for the current year. But we've moved ahead and made it more sensible to approve it in the beginning of the year to make this plan our actual plan for the running year of beginning of school.
If I can add, once the board and if the board approves, the process begins all over again.
Tomorrow.
Because- Right. So it's a fluid process. So there are constant reviews with this monthly committee of what's working, what do we need to shift, changes in law, reviewing what's in the document, also updating those who have different positions at the school site, right, for incident command, if you will. And so it's a fluid process every month. That includes our drills, Patty and John. That includes our drills, which we're required to do by law at various times of the year.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing this forward many, many months before the state is asking us to. That's very helpful. If there are no more questions, this is an action item, so we will move on to public comment. I have no blue cards for this item, so this comes back to the board for any further discussion or a motion.
Can I just say that I had a conversation with students I believe about a year and a half ago, in terms of our dress policy. That seemed to be very anti-female in terms of how we, addressed our female students. And reading through this, it looks like it's been updated. It's not punitive in terms of, what our female students can wear. And it was brought up, to me from a group of students, and that they said, this is very, sexist in terms of, policies. And I'm glad that it's been, updated to reflect where our student body wanted to be in this document. So I just want to say that.
Thank you for making note of that. Any further discussion, Director Medina?
Something that I just kind of want to throw out there for the board in reviewing board policy 0450 as it relates to comprehensive site safety plans. It says when reviewing the tactical response plan, the board may meet in closed session to confer with law enforcement officials, provided that any vote to approve the tactical response plan is announced in open session following the closed session. So I'm just throwing that out there in the context of all that we're dealing with now. If maybe we want to take time to look at if that's something maybe we want to look at, because that's a topic that we have been discussing and, as of late.
Thank you, Director Medina. Noted. Any other discussion? Otherwise, we are seeking a motion on this item.
I make a motion to approve of the district school site safety plans.
Second.
Thank you. That was moved by Director De La Torre and seconded by Director Flores. Roll call vote, please.
Director Rao,
Aye.
Director De La Torre,
Aye.
Director Flores,
Aye.
Director Sheffield,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director McNally,
Aye.
Director Medina,
Aye.
President Manieri.
Aye. Thank you so much for bringing this to us. Item E8, an action item, approval of a variable term waiver for administrative services credential for Amy M. Fuller. The board will consider approval of a variable term waiver request for an administrative services credential for Amy M. Fuller. Presenting this item is Dr. Vicky Zantz.
Thank you again for the opportunity, President Manieri, Superintendent Tranel, members of the board, and members of the Santa Rosa City Schools community. Tonight, I am here to ask for your approval of a variable term waiver for Amy Fuller for the position of Program Manager in the Special Services Department. Amy was a project manager behaviorist that was hired in February of 2022. For the entirety of the 22-23 school year, this particular position was vacant. And for the 23-24 school year, Ms. Amy Fuller was our only applicant. She is currently enrolled in the North Coast School of Education intern program.
Thank you, Dr. Zantz. This is an action item. Board, are there any questions on this item? Seeing none, we will move on to public comment. I have no blue cards for this item, so this comes back to the board for discussion or a motion.
I'd like to move to approve the variable term waiver for administrative services credential for Amy Fuller.
Second.
Thank you. That was moved by Director De La Cruz and seconded by Director Sheffield. Roll call vote, please.
Director Rao,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director Sheffield,
Aye.
Director McNally,
Aye.
Director Flores,
Aye.
Director Medina,
Aye.
Director De La Torre,
Aye.
President Manieri.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to our consent items for this evening. I have one blue card for item F5. So we are seeking a motion to approve items 2 through 4 and 6 through 10.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. That was moved by Director Medina and seconded by Director De La Cruz. Roll call vote, please.
Director Rao,
Aye.
Director Medina,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director Sheffield,
Aye.
Director McNally,
Aye.
Director Flores,
Aye.
Director De La Torre,
Aye.
President Manieri.
Aye. And item F5, we have one blue card for public comment from Micah Carlin Goldberg. Micah, if you'd like to make your way to the podium.
So thank you for letting me have the opportunity to talk about this item. Our CSEA president mentioned the fact that there are nearly several hundred open CSEA positions in the classified staff that are unfilled at 8 weeks into the school year because we don't pay enough. Our special ed assistants make less than people working at Target and at In-N-Out still. When you came to an agreement with CSEA in the spring for their 8% raise, it brought our bottom people to, I believe it was like 8 cents over city minimum wage, which they will be under city minimum wage again in January. I'm told that the cost of giving CSEA the 8% raise is something like $600,000 less than the contract that we are now signing to pay another company $57 an hour so they can find somebody to work for $25 an hour for a job we're paying $19 an hour for. How does that make fiscal sense? This is the board and the school district cutting off their toes to spite themselves, I guess, because you could have given CSEA 16% in the spring for the money that you're spending now to give it to an outside company. It would have solved so many more problems. How many of these contracts are we going to sign where we've got outside companies providing speech and language pathologists, providing psychologists, providing special ed assistants, because we just don't pay enough, but we're willing to spend a premium to spend this money for some outside company to take a 50% cut rather than just paying people what they're worth and hiring them directly with our own staff. It's absurd. We've talked about this before. I know it's come up in previous years. We have got to think forward. I mean, I wish there's some way for the board to say, hey, we're just going to decline this contract and spend the 8%, spend the millions of dollars on another 8% and just give it to CSEA.
Thank you.
Thank you, Micah. I see Director Medina's hand.
Thank you. I guess I would ask staff, is there some sort of making a little sense of that? Could you elaborate on how we make sense of it or how we justify that? I don't have the numbers. I don't know if those numbers are accurate, but it is a good point, I think, to ponder.
I'm going to invite Mr. Mazera to come down. I'm assuming because the contract wasn't named, I'm going to assume we're talking about the Inspire contract.
Yes. I would assume as much. Thank you. So obviously, board, we've engaged in multiple contracts and we've been doing this for a long time. You clearly heard and correctly heard the expression that we have a difficult time finding our classified workers. Obviously, there are requirements that we have for some positions that we have to fill legally, and so we have created a baseline of what our legal liability would be in certain classifications where we have to, through an IEP, through state safety regulations, where we're required to have a certain ratio of adults to students. And so we've kind of created those in some of our special education positions, not all of them. As an example, primarily in what would be like our preschool classifications, our ESN classifications, some of our autism classifications where there could be dangerous and injurious students. So to do that, we've had to kind of go out to our SELPA and go through contract vendors through our SELPA to try to keep those positions filled. We absolutely try to fill inside first. We've had every position posted, every position, and occasionally we get those people come through. I'm not going to disagree with any of the sentiments that we should pay more of a market rate for the instructional assistants that are working every day with our, some of our most difficult students, for sure. And of course, an outside agency is able to pay a market rate. We don't have that flexibility to adjust those rates. We have to go through our bargaining units, and we've attempted to do that as best we can. We came to a wonderful settlement. I'm very appreciative of the work that we've done, but obviously it's not enough in some of these hard to fill areas. There's a certificated version of this that Mr. Carlin Goldberg mentioned about certain hard to fill school psychologists, SLPs, and when we work with our our associations, we have limitations on what we can adjust to the market. And, we get behind in the market adjustments, and that's where we have to kind of fill these required positions. I certainly would love to engage in a conversation, as we have every time we have bargaining units. And we literally have discussed how some classifications might have to have a difference in pay because of the market. And just those aren't the agreements that we come up to with our associations to pay certain classifications of higher vacancy rates, let's say, at higher rates. It's something we bring forward, but it's not currently what we have an agreement with. And so I would love to differentiate and pay the market rate that the agencies are able to do. Yes, some of those people are walking out with $21 to $24 an hour. That's obviously what the market is requiring to fill those positions. And I certainly would love to find a way we could do it. In this particular contract is higher than we've renewed before. Two reasons have happened. There's been about a 4% SELPA-wide increase in the contract rates. We also had a contract vendor pull out of working with us after a long history. We began to put some accountability measures in on this one agency about their work, about their timeliness of their documentation for students, and they chose to leave Santa Rosa City Schools. And the contract vendor we're describing decided to step up with us in the spring and has worked throughout hiring a massively busy hiring structure and process. So we've added about $1 million to that contract that was with another vendor previously. And then we've also continued to expand our special ed programs at local schools and fill that instead of using SCO employees. And of course, we've saved millions of dollars through having our own hiring. Despite the cost of these agencies, it is still a cheaper benefit by at least $35,000 for every student than to send that student to a non-public school or SCO. So as expensive as that is, just on the expense side, let alone the program side of having students in a local residence, having families have access to their kids and not sent away to different programs. So just on the expense side of it, we are still better off, even with those costs, than to have students sent to SCO.
Thank you.
One last thing. This is really, a large sum of money, right? Is it a one-time money? I mean, is this an ongoing sort of expenditure that we expect to have every year because of these positions not being filled? Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Last year, we spent about $2.6 million for vendors to fill these basic positions. And it's not just instructional aides. Some of them were occupational therapies, speech and language they were trying to do. So our outside vendors were costing about $2.6 million last year. And so with those various increases, obviously it's rising. To the point of this specific contract, we've budgeted just on our spreadsheets that it should cost about 2.8. We're putting a contract not to exceed because there are expansions, there are one-on-one aids and situations that come up. There are a number of things that we want the flexibility to be able to fill that entire need. And the last thing is that contract does include ESY as well. So it kind of rolls over the fiscal year, which includes ESY as well.
Does it also include our, maybe you answered this already, but I was writing notes, our ANOVA students that end up, in those facilities?
No, so this is non-public agencies, not non-public schools.
Got it.
And so in addition to that, we have about 143 students in non-public schools. The cost at a non-public school is different than a SCO placement.
Right.
Right now, it's only about $48,000. But that's,
Okay, so I kind of agree. This is a large sum of money that we need to start thinking about. How do we integrate, our own CSA folks to make sure that they take on these positions? And Micah, thank you for bringing this up. The other thing I wanted to bring up is I got an email about our adjoint positions do not mention the fact that they have bonuses. Is it? All right, so I'm just making sure that is there. Does it say bonus? Okay, great, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Director Medina.
So just clarifying, I think I heard you say it's both classified and certificated positions.
In this particular agency, they're not certificated. They're BCBAs, which is still a classified position, but just in non-public agencies as a whole, we have brought other contracts where we're hiring for some video, speech and language, or we're doing occupational therapy. So just as a general rule is the non-public agencies, the dollars go out to both certificated and classified, but by far, the majority of them are classified positions due to unfilled special education aid positions.
And I guess the other part is, do we continue to collaborate with CSEA to try to work towards addressing this issue?
Only through the negotiated process, if we're talking about that, that, and when that comes up, and obviously we had that. It's always a point of a district position that we try to modify perhaps based on the supply and demand world. And then some positions do that. That's certainly a goal that the district tries for. But ultimately, when we finish our negotiations, it comes out the way it is.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Superintendent Trinnell, could you just really quickly explain to folks who maybe don't know why we use certain funds for certain purchases or procurements and why that's a little bit restricted?
Mr. Mazzara could probably speak to it as well, given this is a restricted budget that's been identified. When we are looking at salaries and salary increases, that is coming from our general fund. And that is because we have to guarantee in perpetuity that we're able to pay for salaries. So in that, when we have specialized services, we look to other pots of money so that we can pay for additional services and support. So in this case, with restricted dollars, we would not be able to use this pot of funds to generally give everyone a raise, for example, because it is not a part of the general fund.
And additionally, if I could, Superintendent Trinnell, President Maneri, specifically, and there's a separate funding line for special education dollars, AB 602 dollars, and a separate then from the governors. And they specifically do not fund special education, the totality of all its costs. Under mechanisms that have to do with not trying to create an incentive for qualifying students with disabilities, they purposely try to underfund. And so invariably there is a structural contribution from our general education fund to special education to encourage us to not identify students, to work with MTSS processes and all the other things we try to do through our universal design and tier 1 to prevent students from becoming eligible for special education. So that's just structure. Some of that is structural.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the responses, and what I'm hearing is that this is definitely not something that we want to do, but it is something that we have to do to serve our students in this way, and there's a lot of work to do on this front. Thank you.
If I could, one more thing.
Yes.
I want to appreciate, while I have the bully pulpit here, Press Democrat did an article about special education hard to fill. And I want to just make sure that we all saw that some of our newest teachers were in that article. They were in these classrooms that we described. You saw some wonderful pictures and wonderful teachers. And in fact, this agency that we're talking about right now is one of the reasons that class has been able to populate itself and have fantastic times and have fantastic things. The agency has really done a great job of identifying, training, and supporting that really assists and made that ESN program fantastic. We need to highlight them more, and they're doing a lot of great things for us. And so that just some of those results come out. But to your point, Ms. President Maneri, we wish we were there are all our employees.
Thank you. With that, we are seeking a motion on item F5.
Move to approve F5.
Second.
That was moved by Director Medina and seconded by Director Sheffield. Roll call vote, please.
Director Rao. Aye. Director Medina.
Aye.
Director Sheffield.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director McNally.
Aye.
Director Flores.
Aye.
Director De La Torre.
Aye.
President Manieri.
Aye. Thank you. This brings us to item G1, approval of minutes of the regular board meeting held on September 13th, 2023, seeking a motion for approval.
Move to approve the minutes in the regular board meeting on September 13th, 2023.
Second.
I was moved by Director Medina and seconded by Director De La Cruz. Roll call vote, please.
Director Rao,
Aye.
Director Medina,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director Sheffield,
Abstain.
Director McNally,
Aye.
Director Flores,
Aye.
Director De La Torre,
Aye.
President Manieri.
Aye. Board member requests for information. Are there any requests this evening from board members? Director De La Cruz.
I would love a presentation or some discussion on the restorative justice program overall, and just kind of like an example of what it feels like to be both a practitioner and a recipient of those services. I know we are growing that program, and I'm really excited about sharing that information with our community.
Noted. Director Medina.
Since it was brought up, I'd like to see if maybe we could get a list of the approved textbooks and or books within our ethnic studies classes.
Other requests? Okay, seeing none. Our items, these are listed in our agenda packet. I will just read them quickly. Number 1, future board discussion items. Number 2, board conduct and code of ethics, educational acronyms and abbreviations, Sonoma County Office of Education letter regarding 2023-2024 local control accountability plan. Number 5, Sonoma County Office of Education approval letter for 2023-24 adopted budget. Number 6, facilities projects update. And number 7, revised board governance handbook. Before we adjourn, Superintendent Tranel, any last announcements?
Yes, thank you. Just to follow up on the safety report, we will be happy to bring numbers back to you. Weren't as quick as we thought because many of the positions had partials at various schools as they were spread over various schools. We have to actually add everything up to make it whole and then give you the number on top of that. So we'd be happy to do it. Also, I want to direct people who may still be with us, or if you listen to the recording from our main website, you go straight to our website, which is, and I'm going to pull it up, which is srcschools.org. And on the front page, there is an application right to the right-hand side. It's a circle and it says jobs. And so you click on that. From there, you'll be able to see some information about our certificated jobs, our certificated management, classified management, and then all jobs. If you click on all jobs, it's going to take you straight to a website called EdJoin. That's where all of our positions are housed. And if you scroll down, you will see in big letters the $1,000 signing bonus, retention bonus, as well as all of the positions that we currently have posted. Hopefully we welcome more people to our team. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, this meeting is adjourned.